Doug, you're on the opposite side of the street. You're next door to the Prelums.
Folks, we are live now.
Thanks, Hank. I've got 7:32, if we can just note that.
No.
So I'd like to just take this opportunity, thanks everybody for being here, and call the meeting to order. This is the April 6, 2022 meeting of the Historic District Commission. Hank, just a couple things. I'd like to welcome Jeff to the meeting.
Thank
So,
you.
welcome to the commission. Do we have, I did not see meeting minutes. I noticed it is on the agenda today.
You should have the March
Did I miss them?
17th meeting minutes.
I must have,
included in your
oh my
packet.
goodness, they were in there, my features.
Okay.
So I guess the first order of business, well, a couple things. I don't see our second applicant here right now, is that correct? Is there anybody here to speak on the matter for the Odell residence at 26857 York?
My suggestion would be, Mr. Chair, that you go right ahead and continue with the Shore residence.
Okay.
After, of course, the
Yep.
approval of the minutes.
Okay, so I just wanted to note that just because I had some modifications we were going to propose, but I guess I don't need to do so right now. So I guess the first order of business is let's, excuse me, I wanted one more thing. So just for everybody's benefit who's here, there's this great little pamphlet. So when we have some meeting procedures, and I'd like to make sure that, just so we have an orderly meeting, we sort of follow that. We have some times where we get into a point-by-point discussion. I'd rather us follow some Rogers Rules of Orders so we can keep them moving, flowing. Everybody should have an opportunity to speak, and I'll make sure that everyone does get an opportunity. But that way we can kind of have an orderly process for the meeting. Also just, the standards that we reference around there. So it's always helpful if the applicants, as they're presenting their petitions, refer back to those standards. We would appreciate that. Sorry, Hank, now we can get into the approval of the meeting minutes from March 17th, 2022. I'd like to entertain a motion, if there is one, about the meeting minutes.
I would ask the question or propose a change to the minutes, an amendment.
Go right ahead.
Well, first of all, I thought that the minutes were overly or underly descriptive. I think that they were so brief that we don't like, overly detailed minutes either, but I think that these minutes tended to not portray the flavor of some of the comments and so on, the full flavor. Also, I think in the motion that is referenced to myself to change roofing material, we should at least indicate that it was a motion to proceed and the reasoning that it was a hazard to the occupants of the structure.
Steve, why don't you take that one at a time so that we can have that on the record? Like, where are you, like, page 2, page 1? Why don't you?
Right now I'm on page 2.
Okay.
Excuse me, yes, page 2 of the minutes, about 3/4 the way down, where it says motion to change the roof material to architectural asphalt shingles.
Okay, so you'd like to say notice to proceed as it constitutes a hazard to the occupants.
Yes,
and
I
that's-
think that
That's
that's
fine.
exactly the sort of detail that is lacking,
I'm happy to add that for you.
that should be in there.
Happy to add that for you. Anything else?
I mean, the only other correction that I have is I know that I did specifically ask if we had the original drawings. I know it's mentioned by Mr. Fink later in the motion, but I thought that was a key point, just to determine whether or not we could, to establish whether or not we could determine that the wood was original or not.
Okay, and I'm gonna tell you a lot of what happens with the minutes that's happening with every board and commission. If people are not speaking directly into the microphones, it doesn't get on there and it doesn't, like, it's too far away. Like when you're speaking into the microphones, you should move up exactly. And that way it is, because otherwise if they can't hear you, it does not get in the minutes.
Okay.
So, all right, Steve, I can make that change for you, and Chris, I can make that change for you.
Are there any other recommendations or edits to the meeting minutes?
Well, I don't see my question, but it's not I don't think it's very important.
But they're
For the
not gonna be a verbatim of the whole it's not a transcript. But again, if you're speaking into the microphone, like if you're speaking like this, it'll get on there. If you're speaking like this, it likely won't. So it would really help us if we could speak all into the microphones, myself included, so.
Okay, so based on the edits to the meeting minutes, I'd like to entertain a motion. Would anybody like to make a motion?
Move to accept the minutes as amended.
Thank you, Mark. Is there a second?
I'll second that.
Thank you, Robert. All in favor of approving the minutes? Aye.
Aye.
Are there any opposed?
I should abstain.
I was just going to ask you. That's fine. Thank you very much. You got the count, Hank?
Yep.
Perfect. I guess we'll move right into the application. So why don't we start with our first application here, and it's the review to the addition to the Shore residence at 26398 Henry. And I would like to, just as a rule, when you approach and present, please just let me know your names, and if the public's speaking, just state your name and your address so that we can just capture that all for the meeting minutes. So I see the floor is yours.
Thank you.
Excited to hear your application.
Oh, good evening. My name is Michael Ostrowski of the Ostrowski Design Group, LLC. I'm here tonight with my associate and brother, Peter Ostrowski. We are the firm representing David and Helen Shore, who are here tonight. David and Helen, the owners. And they are the owners of the residence located at 26398 Henry Boulevard, situated in the historic district of Huntington Woods, which is the subject of our presentation. Our firm is responsible for the preparation of design documents and is requesting a certificate of appropriateness regarding our proposal, which includes an addition to an exterior and interior renovations of the aforementioned residence. We submitted, as required, existing as-built site and architectural floor plans and elevations, as well as a proposed engineering site plan, dimensioned architectural floor, roof plans, and elevations for your review. You should be made aware that all original drawings of this residence were unavailable, as well as any documentation regarding original exterior or interior material specifications. Ostrowski Design Group, LLC has diligently researched and documented both on-site and literary inquiry all reasonable and available resources regarding this property. There will be 6 main divisions to our presentation. Sorry. 1 is the existing site plan, principal elevation, and history. Number 2 is the characteristics of the existing building's architectural style. Number 3 is the existing exterior elevations combined with site conditions. 4, the owner's programming specifics. 5, the design proposal including site, floor plans, exterior elevations including materials, and finally, review of the Huntington Woods Planning and Historic Commission guidelines for additions and the Secretary of the Interior State of Michigan standards for appropriateness. To begin, I would like to show the existing site plan and preliminary elevation. We have it set up behind you over there. So I don't know if you can turn and see.
Shit, sorry. I'm right in the spotlight.
For this presentation, north is to the right. The existing 2,555 square foot residence is situated approximately 100 feet south of the intersection of Henry Boulevard and Dundee Road. Its 17,522 square foot lot is located in the historic district of Huntington Woods and has an R1B single family residential zoning classification. The front entrance and the walkway to the house and its address are from Henry Boulevard, but due to its site orientation, the driveway and the unattached garage are located off of Dundee Road. That is at the bottom of the slide. Obviously, a very awkward circumstance when the occupants cannot enter the main front entrance from their driveway. The existing non-original, unattached 450 square foot garage with an asphalt drive and no separate walkway is located over 30 feet from the house, and the ground or site grade is more than 6 feet below the resident's rear entrance and finished floor line. Here again, an existing awkward and unfortunate setting has now become a hazardous condition. The existing lot coverage is 2,046 square feet, which is 11.7%, with a maximum allowable lot coverage of 30%, which equates to 5,257 square feet. The existing property setbacks are in compliance with zoning regulations, and the maximum size of allowable residential floor space on this lot cannot exceed 4,412 square feet. We were unable to we were able to find definite information or documentation regarding the original architect or construction company, or when past renovations and/or additions, including the existing garage, were started and/or completed. We do know, however, that the original residence was constructed in 1927 and was known as the Alvin Griffith House. Here's a picture of the existing house on the slide, on the screen. This structure has a brick exterior facade with limestone detailing with an asphalt shingled, low-pitched hip roof and 2-foot wide overhanging eaves. The original existing single-paned, double-hung windows have upper sash muntin bars and are covered with non-original, failing, and/or inoperable combination aluminum storm screen units. The original eaves and lower window spandrel panels are covered with an unknown corrugated metal shrouding, which is foreign to construction materials and practices of the time of the build, and that this material is blocking soffit venting, which is critical for structural roof stability. There is considerable evidence of window removal and brick infill, especially on the rear portion of the building and the eastern side porch. The western side porch, which is to the right, has non-original full-size single-paned aluminum sash glazing, which are windows which are terribly energy inefficient and render that room unusable during many months of the year. Both side porches also show evidence of wrought iron railings that have been removed, which were originally placed between the separated brick columns which, together, formed a parapet surrounding the flat roofs on both porches. All in all, however, the house is well built, has a considerable and stately presence, and is regarded as a major asset with architectural significance in the historic district. Next, we would like to present the characteristics of the residence, which is the Italian Renaissance Revival style. Per the renowned architectural preservation research team of Virginia and Lee McAllister in their reference book, A Field Guide to American Houses, published in 1984, identifies this residence as a prime example of the Italian Renaissance Revival style, circa 1890 to 1930. We also reference John Blumenson's book, Identifying American Architecture, a pictorial guide to the styles and terms from 1600 to 1945, also published in New York, as well as Herbert Pothorn's book, Architectural Styles, published by the Viking Press in New York also. The main characteristics which they note and which we find on the Shore residence are as follows. As noted, a large-scale, single-family residential building, a rectangular plan, simple low-pitched hip roof with wide overhanging eaves, symmetrical brick and stone facade with symmetrically placed side porches with flat roofs and surrounding short parapets of brick, limestone, and wrought iron railings. I'd like to note here that an asymmetrical subtype called a hip roof with projecting wings is characterized by a 2-story center entry design, which maintains symmetry while the projecting 1 or 2-story wings are balanced by massing and or forward of or recess back from the central mass. Number 5, prominently defined front entrance with classical detailing, including columns and an entablature of painted wood and an upper wrought iron railing. Large main front facade arch windows and or enframements. Smaller and non-uniform windows on the upper level. Continuous prominent belt string course of brick soldier coursing with limestone sills and corner medallions which define the upper floor and the limestone window sills. Finally, under window spandrel panels. So those are the windows. The flat roofs with perimeter parapet and the existing metal rails have been removed. There is evidence of them being cut off. The continuous belt course, yes.
So there's no, the railings don't survive, even fragments, they're just gone.
Oh, the fragments survived that are sticking out of the.
No, but I mean, there aren't any sections.
No,
of
they're
the garage?
gone.
Okay.
Nobody knows when they were removed, but they're just stubs sitting in the brick columns.
Right.
And then we have, okay, the window sills. Next, the large front arched windows and/or enframements, which are there 4 across the front. Next is the under window spandrel panels, which are also covered in that unknown metal. Okay. Next, we'd like to present the existing as-built documents, which include the 4 main elevations of the shore residence, as well as photos depicting the existing site conditions. Sheet A4, which is on the screen, has the existing front elevation. Again, the side porch windows on the left and right, spandrel panels are also seen as missing character and material, as well as missing wrought iron rails. Also in the center, you will see the window above the entablature or the architrave is a sliding window, which we do not know when it was installed, but it is foreign to the structure, is foreign to the type of style and also the window itself. The existing side elevation facing Dundee is the bottom elevation. This shows that the site and garage grade over 6 feet below the existing finished floor. If you look from the left, the garage is a finished grade, and you can see where the main finished floor is 6 feet up and is just below the spandrel panels showing on the side porch. Non-original brick infill on the side porch, which is left of those 2 windows, as well as 4 spandrel material under the original windows with combination storm and screen units, showing the missing wrought iron parapet, the foreign material on the roof dormer, which is at the top of the roof, which is also that metal corrugated, and dilapidated wood deck with failing roof structure is the dotted line to the left of the main building. And as you can see, there's a major proportional discrepancy between the non-original garage and the main structure. If we can go to the next photo, it shows the existing site conditions of this Dundee elevation. To the right, you can see the missing parapets at the top, the windows. There's just behind that major tree, there's an infill of brick, which is non-original to the house. The major tree that is there is at least a 40-foot pine, which we are planning to retain. And if you look to the left, you can see the non-original garage is to be renovated and incorporated into our proposed addition. And if we go to the next slide, which is sheet A5, this is the existing rear elevation from behind the garage, which is at the top of the slide. The site and garage grade, again, over 6 feet below the existing finished floor. You can see those 2 dotted lines that indicate the height difference. The 2 dotted lines that you can see running through the garage itself shows the difference. The non-original garage with cementitious panel siding. That whole 75% of that garage has a cementitious panel of some sort that is nailed to just stud walls that are at about 10 feet tall. Obviously, that is not original to the property. The side porch on right has non-original brick infill, which is just to the right of the garage and on the side porch. The side porch on the left side has non-original full-size single-paned aluminum sash glazing. The missing wrought iron parapet on both side porches. However, there is an error there being shown. They are not there, but we were planning to put them there, which you'll see later in the presentation. There's the foreign material on the roof dormer, as you can see at the top. There's dilapidated wood deck with the failing wood structure, non-original brick infill around the first floor kitchen and powder room windows, which are located under the roof deck itself. The existing side elevation, which is partially facing Henry, which is on the bottom of the screen, shows the site and garage grade over 6 feet below the existing finished floor. Again, the non-original garage with cementitious panel siding. Side porch has non-original full-size single-paned aluminum sash glazing. Missing wrought iron parapet. Foreign material on the roof, dormer, and dilapidated wood deck with failing roof structure. So this site shows the rear elevation site conditions. You have a 6-foot grade change to the main level. We have an uneven and broken path from the garage and driveway leading to the exposed stair leading up to the back door. We have 8 uneven, uncovered, and inconsistent tread and riser dimensions leading from that grade to the deck and into the house. There are dissimilar materials and listing components. Also showing on this is the deteriorating rear deck. It's non-contextual, non-compliant, unsecured with missing rails, and is in a hazardous condition. We can go to the next slide. This is, again, the site conditions from the rear elevation, a little farther toward the Henry Boulevard. Again, showing at the top of the existing building materials are foreign, non-documented, obsolete, and non-original. That's not only is the dormer, but so are the eaves, as well as the siding and spandrel. The deteriorating rear deck, which is also, again, showing missing rails and non-compliant construction, deteriorating and a collapsing roof structure. Again, dissimilar materials, inconsistent paving, tread path is concrete to limestone to flagstone to concrete to flagstone to wood. Here on the left, you can see another stairway of dilapidated wood, which leads down to flagstone. Next, you see the non-compliant or missing rails. To the next to the shrouded umbrella is the concrete pavers. You have concrete steps, then you have flagstone, and then limestone again. Here again are site conditions from the rear elevation inclusive of the garage. The garage structure of the outbuilding does not relate contextually, because of the cementitious panel board, to the existing historic residence, which is brick. The unsafe transition to the residence, we went over the 30, and it is 30 feet uncovered distance from the garage to the house. The first floor to grade, the major elevation change is over 6 feet, and we have non-contextual to historic structure and of inadequate size. Also on that slide, if we could go back, is a picture to the right stating that the garage is 75% of cementitious panel board, and at the bottom of the side you see a major water feature, which is a cascading waterfall, and that empties into a pond. Next, we would like to present our design proposal for the addition and renovation for the Shore residence. Our design proposal consists of 4 main elements. 1, the owner's programming, or for a simpler explanation, their wants and needs. The plans, which consist of the following: the proposed site plan, main level, lower level, and a combined second level and roof plan, the proposed building elevations, and the proposed exterior finished materials. During our scope of work and programming phases, David and Helen Shore tasked us with 4 major directives. Create a new rear entrance to incorporate and attach to the existing garage and produce a secure, all-year covered pedestrian traffic corridor from the garage into the existing residence, and to include orientation to the existing residence and rear entrance foyer, direct powder room accessibility with new mudroom, access to basement, access to kitchen and eating areas, and direct access to the rear yard water feature area. B, existing elevation challenge from grade to first floor to have solution integrated into the design and possibly disguise the stairs, landing, ramping, etc. in a unified manner. C, enlarge and renovate existing kitchen to incorporate a kosher kitchen, organizational layout integrating owner's preparation patternings and appliance specifications. And finally, create a new first floor master bedroom suite to be located toward the rear of the property with consideration to existing cascading water feature, and finally, the water feature is to remain intact. Next, we would like to present our proposed site plan. Again, the north is to the right, Dundee is at the bottom of the page, and Henry Boulevard is at the top. The proposed site plan shows our proposed addition located directly behind the main residence, abutting both the existing house and garage. It is in the darker gray shading. The lot coverage footprint of the proposed residential addition is 1,116 square feet, and the garage is 215.1 square feet, for a total additional lot coverage of 1,331.1 square feet. This amount, added to existing lot coverage of 2,046 square feet, equates to a proposed total of 3,342.1 square feet, which is a total lot coverage of 19.1%. The allowable lot coverage for this site is 25%. All required setbacks of the proposed structure are within allowable parameters. We are proposing new walkways from the Dundee Road side of the property to the entrance of the proposed addition and the existing residence in 2 locations. The first, so as to keep safe pedestrian passage from the public sidewalk to the residence, will be placed adjacent to the driveway. And the second, to allow pedestrian traffic from the front entrance of the house to the Dundee Road side of their property in a safe and secure manner, and to allow the Shores and any visitors to safely travel to their front door in a secure and convenient manner instead of walking up, across, and over 70 feet of lawn. We are proposing a replacement retaining wall, which will surround the proposed covered side entrance porch. This 30-inch high wall, also on the Dundee Road side, is to be constructed of brick with a limestone cap, which is designed to protect the existing 40-foot tall pine, which we showed earlier, as well as other mature landscaping, create a walkout or small courtyard for the porch, and, we feel, enhance the existing streetscape. We are also proposing a concrete patio area, approximately 325 square feet, placed immediately adjacent to the rear yard of the proposed addition to allow for dry egress from the renovated garage and basement egress areas. Finally, we are proposing a 664 square foot elevated deck on the Henry Boulevard side of the property, which will attach to the existing residence and the proposed addition. This deck will replace the existing structurally failing and rotting deck and will allow for family gatherings, scenic viewing of the existing cascading water feature and pond, and a direct access from the first floor to the lower grade by way of an outside stair. Next, we would like to present our first floor garage and basement plans. The proposed first floor attachment plan, which is in the light blue, is raised 6 feet above the existing ground grade to align with the existing main floor. This construction will allow for uninterrupted and safe passage throughout the entire primary living space of the residence. This type of arrangement is extremely important for elderly residents who want to remain in their homes and continue a viable and active lifestyle. The proposed additional square footage is calculated at 1,103 square feet. This amount, combined with the existing residence's 2,555 square feet, will increase the total livable space to 3,608 square feet. The maximum allowable floor area for an R1B residence's combined bonuses and property sizes is 4,412 square feet. In our main floor plan proposal, we have integrated the entrance walkway and steps, covered porch, vestibule, stairs, and landings into a seamless transition, which will allow the Shores to travel from grade to the main level over a height of 6 feet in gradual and measured heights. They will also be able to enter their garage from the residence in an enclosed and secured space, as well as the basement from the same passageway. This, quote, side entrance corridor, which we're calling it, is located at the front of the Dundee Road elevation and will be bathed in natural light from windows which echo the large arched front facade windows and framents that are distinct features of the Italian Renaissance Revival style. We've also enlarged the existing kitchen to meet their kosher kitchen requirements and have also provided a first-floor master suite complete with dressing room and a bathroom which can be retrofitted at any time with any and all ADA specifications if the need arises. The garage to the left has been lengthened by 13 feet, which is also in a very light shade, to allow for side entrances, both interior and exterior ingress and egress activity. The total garage square footage will be 684 square feet. We are also proposing to add a rear garage door to allow for grade level access to the rear of the property, which is almost impossible at this time. The garage roof will be lifted approximately 6.5 feet to provide loft storage above the vehicles and will be accessed from the new rear addition. The proposed basement plan will provide open storage space, mudroom, bathroom with a zero clearance shower, laundry room, separate mechanical room, and a 4-foot wide opening to connect the new basement with the existing. There is also proposed a direct egress stairway to the rear yard for ease of access for the shores. In the future, if necessary, the basement stairs between the garage foundation and bathroom leading up to the earlier mentioned side entrance corridor can be converted into an interior ramp which, by entrance through the garage side door, can access the proposed lift from the basement level, which can then rise to the main floor. Next, we would like to present our second floor and roof plan. There are no changes or proposed additions to the existing second floor. That is on the right. Our proposal is for a one-story addition only. We are presenting this plan to demonstrate how the proposed roof operates. We are proposing to attach the addition to the existing flat roof over the existing rear deck area. This is important because it allows space for required and adequate egress from the existing second-floor bedrooms, which are located at the rear of the residence. This action will also allow natural light to enter the second floor as it has since 1927. We are adding approximately 120 square feet of flat roof on the Henry Boulevard side of the property, which is, if you look at it, is like the T in the middle of the drawing. This location, we are adding, side of the property, and all flat roofs will be receiving new EPDM covering. This location is also where, if in the future the proposed addition were removed, the, quote, essential form and integrity of the historic property and its environment would be unimpaired, unquote, per the Secretary of the Interior standards. All of the roofs are simple low-pitched hips with 18-inch wide overhanging eaves, which are in keeping with the expressed Italian Renaissance Revival style. These roofs will be receiving architectural asphalt shingles. We are also proposing standing seam metal roofing over the proposed side entrance, which will highlight the central mass of the entrance, which balances the overall addition's asymmetric design. Its use also indicates the interior position of the side entrance corridor and stairways. Standing seam metal is being proposed for awnings over both of the front and rear garage door entrances and is being reinstalled on the existing side porch, flat roof parapet extensions on both the Dundee Road and Henry Boulevard elevations. Next, we would like to present the 4 main elevations. The upper elevation shows the existing residence with proposed new metal-clad replacement windows with upper sash muntins and insulated glass in place of the non-original windows and storms. It also depicts the replacement painted wood spandrel panels under the windows in both side porches. We are also looking at installing new windows above the entrance architrave versus the non-original, non-muntin slider unit. This elevation also shows the reinstallation of the parapet metal railings on both side porches. Our approach by this appropriate replacements and repairs will enhance and reinforce the pure symmetry, massing, and detailing of the Italian Renaissance Revival style. Also of importance, per HWHDC guidelines, this elevation shows that the proposed new addition is not visible from the main front elevation. On the lower half of the drawing is the Dundee side road. The Dundee roadside elevation is, quote, the second front of the property. Our proposed addition portrays a classical Italian Renaissance revival asymmetrical subtype called hipped roof with projecting wings, which is characterized by 1 to 2-story center entry design, which maintains symmetry, while the projecting 1 or 2-story wings, not necessarily the same size or matching design, are balanced by the massing forward of or recessing back from the central mass. Our proposed addition does that exactly. The garage on the left of the entry is smaller and closer to our center mass, while the existing residence on the right is larger and more forward. While we have embraced the overall revival style, we have incorporated a somewhat more eclectic approach. We are proposing a covered porch area with columns with a more contemporary feel, which support a full balcony with a metal railing, echoing the railings of the original residence's side porch parapets. We are also proposing fully glazed arch windows with lower painted wood spandrels and 8-inch thick limestone sills, unlike the existing residence's front facade, which has arched enframelments with brick spandrels and thinner limestone sills. We are introducing more string coursing, brick soldier coursing, and more limestone corner medallion details, not only on this elevation, but more defined and numerous on the rear and back elevations. Our upper windows in the Italian Renaissance Revival style are of different size, but still muntined and in proportion to the addition's height and overall massing. Nope, not yet.
Sorry, buddy.
No problem. The recessed connecting breezeway, which is between the addition and the house, thank you, Peter, between the proposed and the existing is set back approximately 25 feet from the outermost edge of the original house, reinforcing the guideline requirement to maintain a setback from the original building plan. Please note that even though the proposed addition is 6 feet lower than the main floor, we have diligently maintained a consistency incorporating existing and proposed cornice detailing and inherent architectural language of the existing historic structure. Finally, the rear and Henry Boulevard.
Now?
Yes. Elevations express the commitment of the addition to maintaining the integrity of the proposed roof lines to the original residence. Also, even though these elevations will rarely be seen from the street, the massing, positioning, and use of materials are consistently expressed and maintained. The non-original windows removed from the Dundee Road side porch will be repurposed and incorporated into the lower level of the renovated garage. The non-original windows removed from the kitchen will be repurposed and incorporated into the proposed upper storage loft of the garage. Since the garage is unconditioned, these windows present no significant energy deficiency. Here, as earlier mentioned, is the more expressive and extensive use of brick soldier coursing, 8-inch limestone sills, and limestone corner medallions. Our next slide will show the proposed materials. Upper left is the metal window exterior, cladding finish, material, and trim color. The second one is the metal standing seam roofing, gutters, and downspout finish material. To the left is the modular brick texture and finish, color texture and finish, and then the architectural asphalt shingles are to the right. The next slide. This is the proposed all wood with exterior metal clad replacement windows by Pella Window and Door Company. We have used these windows in other historic properties and that have been approved. These will have that dark metal brown on the inside and wood interiors that can be either painted, stained, or pre-finished. Finally, here is the proposed addition as you would see it from Dundee.
Is that a dramatic pause or?
Thank you for your kind attention. We are prepared to review all Huntington Woods Planning Commission and Historic District Commission guidelines, as well as respond to the Secretary of the Interior standards and any of your questions. Thank you. Yeah. You can leave that rendering out, sure. We can take it all off and just,
No, you're good.
we can,
Maybe we'll just share.
we have, for questioning, we have boards that will have the floor plans and also the elevations. And we have overlays that will show if you have a question regarding what is existing, we have an overlay that will show how it has changed.
Thank you very much for the presentation. Hank, I think you're up.
Yeah, I don't know that I'm gonna top that. But there are a couple things that I do wanna mention. And basically what happens is that when we do this, and we have an addition of such substance and size, we do the same thing that we do with the planning commission, and we compare it with the properties next door. So basically, when you have 26398 Henry, which is a subject property, which is an extremely irregular lot, next door to it, you have, which gives you 17,522 square feet, which is the lot that Mr. Ostrowski is talking about adding to. The house size, again, is proposed to be 3658, and again, you're looking at a two-story house with brick exterior material and an attached garage. To the south, and you have two souths here, 26358 Henry is another irregular shaped lot, 115 by 105, 12,075 square feet. So that one is, again, a little bit smaller, but still a very large lot. And that house is 2,533 square feet. The house next to it, at 26573 Dundee, which is the one, actually it was just here. But-
He's right here.
Oh, okay. But that house is 2,957 square feet, but the lot is significantly smaller at 7,375 square feet. So this will require ZBA appearance if approved by the HDC. You decide a favorable motion. Any motion that you make should include, subject to the approval from the Zoning Board of Appeals. The garage is over the required size of 650 square feet by 34 square feet. It is possible that they could choose to trim that and then not, then not have to go to the ZBA for that. But if you're looking at that, that's one of the considerations. We go through the standards of the secretary. The interior property shall be used for its historic purpose or placed in a new use that requires minimal change to the defining characteristics of the building and its site environment. There is no change. The use is still single-family residential. It was and is. Number two, the historic character of the property shall be retained and preserved. The removal of historic materials or alteration or features and spaces that characterize the property should be avoided. The front of the house isn't changed, but as a peninsula home, there are a minimum of 3 sides that are highly visible, which you should take into consideration in your deliberations this evening. 3, each property shall be recognized as a physical record of its time, place, and use. Changes that create a false sense of historical development, such as adding conjectural features or architectural elements from other buildings, shall not be undertaken. An addition of any kind does not necessarily violate the standard, but you should pay attention to the transition from the old to the new and the end product. 4, the properties change over time. Those changes that have acquired historic significance in their own right shall be retained and preserved. The significance of the properties as it exists now. Mr. Ostrowski has illustrated some of the features that have been changed over time and some of the windows and other key features that have been replaced previously and other materials that would not be typical. Whether or not aluminum siding or softened material or slider windows have acquired historic significance, that would be up for you to decide. 5, distinctive features, finishes, and construction techniques or examples of craftsmanship that characterize the property shall be preserved. With an addition, it's pretty much to the extent possible. You can't preserve that which you're obscuring. So you should take a look at that in context. But it definitely obscures and removes, but what is it obscuring and removing? So you have to consider the impact of the addition, the transition from the house to the garage, and anything else that you would feel that would be obscured or not deteriorated, but anything that this would do that would be detrimental to the resource of itself. And 6, historic features shall be repaired rather than replaced. Where the severity of deterioration requires replacement of a distinctive feature, the new feature shall match the old in design, color, texture, other visual qualities, and where possible, materials. Replacement of missing features shall be substantiated by documentary, physical, or pictorial evidence. Again, in the case of an addition, this is difficult to apply, but you may want to revisit standards 2, 9, and 10 when you think about this and you contemplate this. 7 is the chemical and physical treatment such as sandblasting that cause damage to historic materials shall not be used. They're not doing that here. 8, the significant archaeological resources affected by a project shall be protected and preserved. If such resources must be disturbed, mitigation measures shall be undertaken. Again, there's no archaeological dig going on here. There's footings and basic construction applications. 9, new additions, exterior alterations, or related new construction shall not destroy historic materials that characterize the property. The new works shall be differentiated from the old and shall be compatible with the massing, size, scale, and architectural features to protect the historic integrity of the property and its environment. Again, one could argue that any addition destroys some historic material. The discussion about differentiation needs to take place. You should consider mass and scale. And 10, new additions and adjacent or related new construction shall be undertaken in such a manner that if removed in the future, the essential form and integrity of the historic property and its environment would be unimpaired. Again, this is a substantial addition. It would be unlikely that it would be removed at any point as it requires significant structural changes. What you do want to take into consideration is what is being proposed correct for the standards, the guidelines from the city, which I have enclosed in your packets. And if you have any questions at this point in time, I'm sure that Mr. Ostrowski or myself or the Shores would be happy to answer to the extent possible. But other than that, we would look forward to a discussion. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Hank. Now we have an opportunity to discuss. I think I started on that side last week, so Steve, we'll start with you if you have any questions for either the applicants or the staff.
Also, I can go take the slides back to anything you would like to see.
I just wanted to let you know that we do have we can, so you don't have to turn around, we do have elevations here.
Perfect.
Not the same, they're more sketches in watercolor. And also I was wondering, Hank, is public participation, or can the Shores say something, or is it, when will that be?
The
After
chair can
discussion?
give them, the chair can give them an opportunity at any time. But
Okay.
the Shores certainly will have an opportunity to speak. That
So
would be when the chair would.
hopefully we'll get some questions.
Oh,
We'll have
absolutely.
some engagement. And
Thank
then,
you. Didn't mean to.
No worries. And then there is a chance for public participation after this before we move forward. So, Steve, would you like to start?
Yeah, well, it's tremendously creative, getting from point A to point B, and I don't fully understand the floor plans with all the different
I can
elevations coming in.
quickly explain that to you if you'd
I
like.
mean, okay, well, I just want a better understanding, because when I
Oh,
look
of
at
course.
this, it looks like this porch and vestibule are really on the first floor,
Yeah, they're
but they're
not.
really not.
No, correct, correct.
There's a series of steps to get up to.
Correct. So, from here we have the existing house sitting right here. At this level, down to the garage, to this level, there's a 6-foot drop.
Right.
So what we are proposing is to take that 6 feet and gradually come in through the front and up around to this level. What that does is in this area, we're coming up 6 inch increments to here, which is 2 feet. So from the grade to this main vestibule inside the porch is up 2 feet from here. To the right, we go up 3 risers, 4 risers to this point, which is another 2 feet. So now from here to here, we are 4 feet. We have an area where these are 12-inch treads to a landing, and then up another 4 feet, another 2 feet, which is 4 treads up to here. So from here to here, we've come in through the door, we've gone up into here to 6 feet. Also, if you come in here and you want to go down to the basement, You're coming up 2 feet, you're going back down 2 feet, and can be able to go into the garage, which is a grade level. Or you can continue underneath the shower area that drives down about 6 steps into the basement, which is shown right here. So if you were to come in the stairs, you go down, you can go into the garage, or you can come around into the basement space.
I understand that, with a series of different elevations.
And it's all integrated, correct.
Now, here, let's go back up to the,
Steve, could you
So
speak
this-
into the microphone, please?
okay, so this entryway that we're
Yes.
looking at here, which looks like an entryway to an actual residence, like you would be coming into a main foyer, which would go into a living room and the main house, is really disguising or covering what is just a very
A stairwell.
intricate hallway.
And stair
But
corridor.
it looks like another entryway, to me, it looks like another entryway to a regular full-size
Residence.
residence, and not just an entryway to what is a practical
entrance.
area just to get you from one level to another level.
Absolutely. And the other thing about this is that this, we have charged with having a second front. Any corner, this is on Dundee, so this has to look like a second front of the house. So, in a way,
But this is really true, is this truly the backyard of the house, or is this the front yard?
this is
No,
the back.
that's the side yard. The
Side.
front yard is actually on
Hendry?
Hendry.
Okay, so this is the backyard of the house. Okay. I'm not gonna get into that, I'm gonna,
Side yard.
It's a side.
Side,
well,
It's a technical
Yeah.
side.
portrays itself as a side yard, but oh, is that really in the side yard? I-
Yes,
Yeah,
yes. Because here is the front.
Where should, maybe your site plan would help.
it's
And-
a
Yes.
peninsula.
And I know you didn't, the roof plan on the site plan at some point in time just
Right.
Well, if you show,
might help.
there's the site plan, you can see right there.
So, Steve, that's that entrance right there.
Right.
So when you're on Dundee, it looks like,
Right, I understand,
Yeah,
right,
so
I
it's-
understand.
But the main elevation, which is the large facade, correct, you view from the point of the peninsula,
I guess,
and it's massive.
I'm not gonna really render an exact opinion on this yet, but I need to clarify also then, which windows in the main historical structure are going to be replaced?
These are on here.
well, isn't some of those,
They go around to the
Speaking
front
of-
too.
So
some of those brick?
so that's on the wings, that's on the east wing.
Right now, yes, the wings, correct.
And do you believe that you do believe those are original windows?
No, they're not original.
Those ones are not.
Those are not original windows.
How about on the front structure of the house, what would be considered the front of the main structure, not the wings?
Those are original windows.
And those windows will
But
stay?
those are staying right now, yes, we might come back and ask for another,
What about that
change.
little window up above the
that
door?
is not original.
Is that gonna stay?
No, we'd like to have that
So
removed,
that
which
one
I asked
window
for.
you wanna,
I want to change the one up above,
right,
and I want to change these windows here, I'm sorry, these windows here, and
Okay.
these windows here.
I'm gonna hold up for now. I might have something to come back with, but, you clarified some questions. Thank you.
Okay.
Robert?
Thank you. Well, since we're leaving off with windows, I'll start with windows. The windows that are, can we go to an original
What do you need, Robert?
slide, the Dundee slide, original elevation?
Let me know when you hit what you'd like.
If you go to the second slide, there it is. Oh, yeah, that's it. Yep.
Right there.
Well, I'll use these.
Those are the Dundees.
This is existing. Your plan, these two triple banks have been changed to double banks.
Yes, but those are not original windows.
The form is original to the house.
The form is original, yes, but the windows are not, as is the panel, plus the fact that they bricked in,
I'll go right to
oh, I'm sorry,
panels.
yes.
Are those not board and batten?
No, they're metal. It's a metal covering of some, we don't know when it was installed. It's the same material that is under the soffits. It has been in the 70s, it's a 70s material. It's a corrugated cut that has been slapped onto the
So
spandrels.
you don't know what's underneath it,
We know it's wood. We're assuming it's wood for sure.
but you don't know what the
Well, we didn't do,
decorative form is. You haven't done,
no, we haven't pulled that off.
Got it.
But we
Okay.
do know that it is underneath the soffits, and it is also on the dormer on the roof, and it is haphazardly screwed onto that. But it is,
you frequently use the term non-original. As we don't have original plans, how do you know that everything you stated as non-original isn't original?
just by our historic, looking at from homes around the area.
Can you tell
Plus
me
the
how-
stores, especially the.
Can you
the,
tell me, please, how you know the garage is not original?
Yeah, the inside of the garage, is the wood. The interior studs
I
are,
can tell you the garage is not original.
it's not original.
Can we please go to, do you have a photograph of the rear of the house?
Certainly.
There's one, yeah, it's in the back here.
Okay, back up one, please, or this one. These two windows, can we go to a photograph or a drawing of the side of the garage, the west elevation?
Right there. There you are.
West elevation, please?
That's west.
Side.
That's the
You want
back of the,
That's the back of the house.
I want to see the side of the garage, the Hendry side.
There's a
Right
photo.
there. There it is. That's it.
that's it.
No, there's a photograph that shows the back of the garage. I've got a feeling I know where you're going.
Yeah,
Yeah, find that photo that shows the.
Robert, you want it advanced?
well, it may be advanced, maybe backwards, I don't know. But it's in there, we've seen it.
Yeah, it'd go forward.
That's the back
Keep
of
on
the-
going, keep on going.
There you are.
There you go.
There we go, there's the window.
That's not a window.
It's not
That's what,
That's not a window.
Artifact,
It's an artifact.
artifact.
got it, okay, thank you,
Hanging by a screw
thank you,
on the outside of the garage.
thank you.
I hung up as much as I could to hide the ugly.
Good catch, though.
It's true.
Wow,
Well, it looks like the same pattern,
yeah,
which it is.
good eye.
I would like to see the plan which shows the first floor plan renovation.
Right here.
Mike, you know what?
Yeah, I can do it.
Yeah, but I'd like the public to be able to.
Yeah, I'd like to get up here, please.
Sure.
So here, if you want to.
Sure.
Okay, so on this plan, where is the existing rear wall of the house?
Right there. Just that black, that heavy black line.
Right here.
And is that entire wall coming out?
Yes. Not the upper floor though, just the lower level, which was.
The lower level.
Which is an infill brick and windows that are not original.
Not behind the living room.
Okay.
That's 50.
The windows
No.
behind the living room are staying.
Okay. My
That
next,
wall is from here to here.
got it.
That's it. And that is, as I stated, non-original brick, infill brick with non-original windows. And we're leaving the upper floor intact.
Understood. You said that you were going to reinstall the standing seam roofs.
On the perimeter.
How do we know that there were standing seam roofs there?
Well, we knew there were metal roofs. There's shingle there, and under the shingle is metal. The metal is flashed up and goes down underneath, and they put shingle over the top of it,
On both ends?
both ends.
And when you replicate or when you reinstall the metal railings,
Yes.
of what pattern and design are those going to be?
They'll be consistent with an Italian Renaissance revival style. They'll be very simple, not overly ornate.
Will they not be the same as the existing railings over the front door?
Hopefully, probably they will be.
I could say,
Like, see, that needs to be a definite, this is what you're going to do. I'm going to replicate these precisely, or they are going to be
well,
something
there's
similar
no-
to.
Well, all I can tell you, Robert, is there is no definite information regarding that rail over the door, if it is matching, because the one over the door is in smaller size than the ones over the parapets. So, I
Okay.
can't definitely say that we can match that in proportion and size,
Got it, I understand.
but in the style that would be appropriate to the house.
You said, going back to the largest elevation of the house is the front
The main
of
elevation.
the main
The
elevation.
main elevation.
The Dundee side is not larger than the front of the house? The number one front?
This,
Yes. With the addition, is the Dundee side not
from
larger?
here to here,
No,
Because we're putting
no,
the
from the,
our
from,
addition is
from the
here.
front, all the way back to the garage, is that dimension not greater than the existing front of the house?
our addition is not, because it is sitting.
Not the addition, the entire
I would say
structure.
yes, if you can see, look right up there and say, yes, it is.
Right, so this dimension now, from front to back.
Robert, I'm gonna ask you to speak into the microphone, to the extent you can, because people will not be able to hear you.
The front of the house, the top elevation, is smaller than the proposed new structure.
I would not say smaller, I would say it's shorter in length, but the main front of the house is more dominant and predominant. It's raised up higher than the addition. The addition, the side
I got
addition
it.
is lower,
I
much
got it.
lower. It's only a one-story
Got it.
addition.
But it's longer.
It is longer in
Okay.
length, but it's not,
Got it.
as mass, which mass proportion,
Variance for a 20-foot setback in the front yard. It's a required 40-foot, and you're proposing 20 feet?
well, we have a deck that we're proposing. It does not have to be that big, but we would like to have a deck that would be available for large family gatherings and an overlook of the
So
pond.
you're proposing a 20-foot variance? Okay,
Along with the garage, just for clarification.
thank you. And you are proposing a 2.5-foot setback on one side, where there's a 5-foot setback. You want to reduce that to a 2.5-foot setback in the side yard?
I don't
That's
Required?
already
I don't
existing.
see anything.
Oh, that exists?
That's existing.
In this agenda, Hank, it says side yards, required 5 foot on one side, 14-foot total.
That's correct, but the garage that's there is different than that.
So it says proposed 2 feet, 5 inches is not right?
It's proposed not to move.
Got it. Okay. And the rear yard requires a 35-foot setback, and there you're proposing, oh no, it's not proposed, it's existing, 24 feet, 4 inches. So that doesn't, that's the same, it's not moving.
Existing dimensions are not, you can't make him move what's already existing.
Well, it says proposed.
So, again, proposed is what is going to be there. So it is there now, it is proposed.
Proposed what is?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah, it is confusing language. That's what I have now. I'll hear more later. Thank you.
Thanks, Robert. Mikhail?
To speak to this. Sorry. Okay. First of all, I would like to say that I think it's a very smart plan. I have two questions. You said that above the garage, it's going to be storage area. Where do you enter the storage area? Because it's not on the plan.
The storage area is from the back of the garage. It's a loft. You can only enter it from the garage.
Okay, so there's
There's no living
from the-
space, no living space whatsoever, and no entrance from the addition except for underneath the garage.
Okay. And the second question, if you can clarify, you said that in the future it could have some ramp from the garage to the basement?
Right here. If you come in, you can come in into the garage, go into this door, which is inside the addition. At this point, we have stairs going down to the basement. In the future, at this point, going down, this could be an elongated ramp that gets down into the basement space, which will allow you to use the lift and come up to the main floor.
Thank you.
Is that it? You have them?
I'm done.
Well, I too compliment you on the design. I think it's a very elegant solution to a whole bunch of what I can see are
Thank you.
challenging programmatic requirements. Going back to the non-original garage, was there any indication that the house was built without a garage?
No.
Okay, so in other words, what's there now replaced an earlier garage?
Can I comment? Should I have the microphone?
That'd be great. Thank you, just so we could hear you.
Yeah.
Hi, Dave Shore speaking. First of all, thank you all for taking the time to go through this. We know there's a lot here. What we were told by the previous owners is that the original garage was destroyed by a tree that fell on it approximately 10 to 15 years ago. So there was a garage there. I'm assuming it was more consistent with the original look and feel of the house than the current one. There's a little brick facade on the front of it, and all the other three sides are just
There's
whatever you
cementitious.
call this cementitious. It's pink fake wood. It's just awful. So
So in other words, it's, the non-original garage is built on the same footing or the same foundation as the original? Maybe.
I actually think the foundation was changed because last year we had to pay somebody $2,000 to get thousands of pounds of concrete out of our backyard. So I'm pretty sure that they put a new foundation in.
But I think it was in the same place.
But I think it was in the same place.
Yeah, my understanding of this was that it absolutely was in the same place, because the only way that you can rebuild it is if it has to be in exactly the same location, exactly the same spot, for catastrophe or calamity, like a tree falling on it. And I do remember the tree falling on this, and it was monstrous.
Okay.
So it pretty much obliterated the garage.
It's a minor point, but it's of curiosity in terms of just the placement of things.
Sure.
This also gave us clues, not to interrupt, I'm sorry, but it also gave us clues because the brick that was used on the front, the two pillars and the surround it, is also found on areas of the infill of the house. So that brick was also at the same time, that's what we're assuming, at the same time the brick was, it blocked in the back area and it blocked in they changed the windows in the kitchen area and the bathroom area, and so that was all brick that doesn't.
As part of the restoration that you want to do on the main house, are you planning to remove the infill to
Yes.
make okay.
For the windows.
For the windows?
Correct.
Right, so they're going to be, that's what it looked like on the drawings, but I want to be clear about that.
Those are right in this area, by the way. You can just see them. They're right here.
Yeah, I could see that in the drawing. I just wanted to be sure that, I was clear on that.
They're right here on the rendering.
Right, okay. The dormer, was the dormer original?
The dormer's original, but the siding and the material surrounding it is not.
That's interesting. Now, this is a design question. It's kind of getting into the contested territory here, I see. One of the things that I like about the design is your use of setbacks, particularly on the Dundee side. I think that's probably really effective there in terms of that Italian revival look, where you break sight lines. This is sort of deliberate, architectural move. The one piece that I wonder about, which I think is overly dramatized, by the way, in this drawing, because I don't think it's as extensive when I look at the blueprints, when I see it here, but it is that porch with the two columns that stick out, which feel to me very un-Italian revival.
Well,
And I'm kind of curious about that. Yeah, go ahead.
there's a reason. Number one, it is not that large. It only protrudes out, I think it's 4 feet, Pete?
Yeah, it looks much deeper in that drawing.
It only protrudes out, there's only a 2-foot porch. And then the awnings, or the columns are sit here, so this is like 3.5 feet at most. So it's just a slight shove of the fact of the architrave that is on here. It's taking this, and because we don't want to match exactly what is here, we're made a little more contemporary of just pushing these out and keeping the columns a little more contemporary versus the straight classical columns of Doric or Corinthian or Ionic. So they're square columns. It's very simple, it's very clean, and it's creating this faux balcony, which if you look at the house, that's the same thing that rail does in the main house. It creates this faux balcony, and this upper half is to be stepped out on. We are doing the same thing, but that rail's only coming out like this. Again, it is an echoing of that. However, it is a little bit more contemporary, a little more eclectic, so there is no question of this is the addition versus the original.
Okay. I mean, I wondered about, that treatment from the Hendry side, where you have a similar set of problems, but the program isn't as extensive in the sense that you want to create a setback, you want to break sight lines, you want to be kind of clear about where the original house was and where the addition begins. And it seems like it's harder on the other side because you're so close to the facade.
Well, here, this is set back 25 feet.
Right, I'm aware of that.
And so this is the entrance, really the side entrance. There's no way to get an entrance from this side.
I'm not suggesting you should. I was just kind of
saying that to create this, what we've done is, here is the porch. We have gradually set this back. So there is a very subtle stepping, which you can see that you will see the house on the left, then the kitchen is set back, then the bedrooms are set back, then the garage is set back. So we are still making this elevation the major elevation that you see. This kitchen area is a continuation of this flat roof. However, it is has the same sense of height as the side porch, and it is a continuation of that line. So we're tying that addition into the house itself and continuing it but settling it back so that Hendry elevation is still prominent. And this elevation is completely blocked by arbor vitae and other landscaping. If you go to the site plan, you can see that all this area is completely blocked from the Hendry side. You really can barely see, when we took those photographs, I mean, we were between arborvitae so you could see it, but up top, you can see how far back that is, and how prominent the side of the house is still on that Hendry side. And the addition is tucked in behind, again, the side porch by a minimum of 5 feet. So again, per the guidelines, which is a minimum of 2 feet, we have 5 feet on that side, and we have 25 feet on the Hendry side. Plus, as you're getting away from that Hendry side, it gets deeper and deeper and deeper. So it's less obtrusive, it's less overpowering, it's only 1 story.
bigger than it is. If I took this, okay, and showed you, here's the grade. This is that elevation, okay? Here is the height that you're gonna see. That's it. It's 1 story. That's all it is. Because this drops down 6 feet and is set far back. So it's not obtrusive, it's not overpowering, it's subtly set back. We're keeping true to the roof lines. We've left this space open so light can penetrate, which is right here. If you look at the back, here's the back of the garage that we're adding. Here are the windows, here's the height, but this is what's behind that. This is all here. So that is all exposed. So we're not changing, the light that was started in 1927 is still coming in the same location, the same amount. And we're keeping these windows so we don't have to change them into egress windows or take them out altogether or take any of that, this brick or anything else or the stone or any of this. This will all stay complete. This area is all the infill stuff. We're taking, this is the only brick that we're taking out here, which is infill brick, which is not original. And that's it. This, by the way, is a 6-foot man, to give you a sense of scale. This person is 6 feet here. 6 feet here, 6 feet there. That's it.
Any other questions?
Not for me.
Mark?
I think Mr. Shore answered the only question I had, which is basically whether the existing garage has acquired any historical significance in its own right. Obviously, it has not, so I'm okay with that.
Hey, I just have a couple quick questions, just, I know this is not the planning commission, but if a motion does happen, as soon as you attach this thing to the existing garage, I imagine that you're beholden to side yard setbacks, right? Because of the amount of renovation, and you're now taking a detached garage and making it an attached garage.
It
And
doesn't,
plus-
We're all set.
it doesn't change the side yard. He's not going any further back. The area of his construction is gonna be, the only thing is that if his garage, let me get to the,
But you're putting basically a whole other level on the garage. So how, and you're allowed to do that with?
you're allowed to
even
do
though you're
that in
violating-
planning, you're allowed to go straight up, straight back, as long as it doesn't further violate
Okay.
the thing. So like here, how you have this here, as long as this section doesn't go any closer to the property line than this point. This point is, if this point is no closer than this point to the property line, you're allowed to extend the nonconformity.
And so, and the brick adding onto that elevation will violate that though, so is that allowed? Because you're not gonna have a footing on there, you've got cement board on the side, you're gonna add 4 inches of brick. Are you allowed to do that?
If he's got, let me pull this up a little closer for me to look at, because I don't have the set prints here.
Just, not that I like it, I'm just
Yeah,
curious.
what I will tell you is that if you take a look at this, and this is the area that you're talking about for the foundation, and this is the lot configuration, let me go back here. Oh,
There you
Yeah, that's it.
This, if you'll see here, this line is going further away from the back lot line. So this gap here is wider than this gap.
I understand, but as soon as you add brick to that, you're extending the footing, you're doing something, you're adding
You're allowed
materials
to do
there,
that, straight up, straight back is allowed.
but you're going further out than the existing line of the existing wall.
He's saying because brick is thicker than the cement
Correct.
board, is what
So
I'm.
I'm just curious, I mean, it's a nuance because
It shouldn't be, it should continue in the same line, but it shouldn't be, the exterior elevation of this should not be any closer to the rear lot line or to the side lot line
Of the
than
addition.
the addition is currently.
But when you touch the garage,
So-
you put the brick, you will change.
Right,
it.
I mean, in the
It's a
final
nuance, but
scheme of things, assuming this gets approved and then, you
It'll
know,
be
we go
subject
through
to planning.
all of our variances, it won't be subject to planning commission because you act as a planning commission in the historic district. But what it will be subject to is anything else would be zoning board of appeals. And at that point in time, when they apply for that, we go through the whole thing and see what it has to be, and the zoning board of appeals has to be noticed, it's a whole separate animal for this. The only thing that you can't do is you can act as a planning commission in the historic district, but you cannot act as a zoning board of appeals.
So I'm actually,
So any motion that you would make subject to approval by the zoning board of appeals. Or Mr. Ostrowski would have the opportunity to comply with that if he wanted to take the wall or do something different with that.
the only other question I have is in terms of, this is just a scale thing. I too appreciate a couple of moves, the way the setbacks, and even that, I can't think of the Hendry elevation, you're showing it orthogonally, you're never really gonna see it that way.
No, you-
So I
right.
do believe that the way the prominence of the existing historic structure, the way it's sited, despite the addition, will maintain that prominent
that-
elevation from the corner, so I think those were some good moves.
Yes.
The only question I have is really about the garage. I mean, you mentioned a 6-foot storage loft, but it's at least a 10-foot addition on top of the garage plus roof.
No.
Maybe I read dimensions wrong, so.
The garage, the plates are a 10-foot, the garage plates are a 10'6".
9.6.
No, they're 10'6". The plate is a 10'6".
I just
And
feel
so
like
what-
that scale is the only piece
Oh.
that I don't
Well, in reality,
necessarily love, I guess,
this-
from my
well,
perspective. I think the
this
scale
floor
is pretty high here. And I'm gonna take a look at my drawing one more time, just because maybe I misread. So,
This-
it's 6 plus 6 plus.
That's 10'6" right
So
there.
we've got a height of 2110 on this proposed structure. And our existing garage is 12'4", so there's about a 9.5 foot. So addition on top of the garage, that's the only piece that, I mean, I love everything else about it. That's the one, it looks like a second story in massing, and it's large. Just a little odd, that's all, the only comment I have.
So our idea is again, the massing of from the asymmetrical front, or the symmetrical front of the addition, is that massing that really has to blend with this and this. Otherwise, if you look initially, that roof line of the garage is approximately right here. Here's 10'6" right here, here's the roof. All we're doing is a 6-foot loft and then the roof, which is, again, pushed way back. It's a hip roof. So in reality, you're only gonna get that. That's what you're gonna see, is that elevation, is only that. This, of course, is forward, and you'll see this whole tower with, again, another hip roof. However, this is larger than this, so if you look at the full elevations, you can see that there is a very subtle rise from the left to the right side, plus the space in between.
I don't have any other questions. So at this point in time, we have an opportunity for some public participation, so I'm not sure if there's anyone here who would like to speak
Mr.
about this.
Chair, I would suggest that perhaps you let the Shores lead off because
Oh,
they didn't get
sure.
an opportunity to speak.
My apologies, thank you.
Thank you. And thank you again, members of the commission. So we moved into Huntington Woods 3.5 years ago?
Little more than 3 years ago.
A little more than 3 years ago. She always keeps track of names and calendars for me. We immediately pretty much fell in love with the city. We've multiple times said, I wish we'd known about this place our whole lives. You guys keep it a good secret. So we pretty quickly went to the point of deciding that this is the place that we want to be in for as long as we until we have to go to a nursing home or something, which we're hoping is a very long time from now. And so what originally started out as my wife, who's had hip replacement and is terrified to go down the stairs to the garage because for some reason, now that we're in our 60s, for the first time we had a garage that wasn't attached to our house and didn't even think about the stairs out to it. Okay. So we're like, how can we deal with that? And then we started thinking about, well, if we really want to be here until our 80s, 90s, maybe, who knows, until the money in my 401k runs out, what else would we want to do to really make this place something we can be in for decades? And that's when we started thinking about the first floor master. We always wanted the kitchen to be enlarged. As Mike mentioned, we have a kosher kitchen, and the kitchen is small anyway, but for our purposes, it's really doesn't work. We need 2 sinks, we need 2 stoves, et cetera. What's that? Well, one stove, but like double-sized, so it's got 2 sides. And so that really kind of expanded our thoughts around it. I think the only other comment I'll make is, as a couple of you have noted, both of us have commented to Mike and Peter that the plan they came up with to give us an interior set of steps that would get us out to the garage without it looking like some awkward, kludgy thing is really quite impressive. And we were kind of blown away when we saw the drawings because it really makes it look like one contiguous property, even though there's significant elevation difference between the main house and the extended area. Your point about the garage, I kind of get it, but to me that was a huge plus because the garage right now is such an eyesore. And although it is a little higher than it was, since it's 6 feet lower than the original house, it's still much below the house. And so it just makes it all feel like an extension and makes it feel like it's one house and not a house that had a garage bolted onto it, which is what we wanted. So those are the things that we're really happy about. We think that this addition is going to allow us to stay here for years and decades, and which is what we want because, as I said, we really love being here. Thank you.
Thank you. Now we have the opportunity for public participation, so if there's anybody here who would like to speak about this petition, please step up to the mic. Please state your name and address, that would be appreciated.
Hi, I'm Claire Greco. I live at 26586 Dundee. I will be looking directly at that. And when that tree fell at about 2 in the morning, it took that entire garage and just split it right in half. And our house literally shook. I couldn't imagine what your house would sound like. So, it just looks like it's like very massive compared to the house, like what Robert pointed out. When I look at it from the side, it looks as if the mass of the side is so much bigger than the mass in the front. And I just wanted to know about the architectural details that are on the addition. Are they going to match the house? Are you going to be adding more to the house? Because it looks like a lot more architectural details on the addition than on the original house. The original house is a rectangle that's balanced by 2 squares on the side, whereas this thing kind of looks like a whole Parcheesi puzzle put together. It just kind of looks to me like it's 2 separate buildings. Is it supposed to look like that? Does that mean, is it supposed to look like it's flows together?
Oh, we feel it flows together.
Because when I'm looking at it now, I mean, the two columns that are sticking out from that side door there, I mean, it does, maybe the drawing makes it look as if it's sticking out a lot further than it will, but that's not what the front door looks like.
You're, just for point of clarification on this, is that you are supposed to differentiate the old from the new.
Okay, I thought it was supposed to work all together.
And you're supposed to differentiate the old from the new, and that's where the setbacks and that type of thing comes into play.
Okay.
But it's actually a requirement that you differentiate the old from the new. And the question becomes for the Historic District Commission to contend with is, does it do enough and still flow together enough? Does it make sense?
Yeah, I mean, the garage is the one that kind of gets to me. It just looks as if it's just so massive compared to like the rest of the house. That's I'm just worried about the balance of how it's gonna look from the side. So,
Thank you. Anyone else would like to speak?
Hello, I'm Sean Craig. I live at 26573 Dundee. You might remember me from historic commissions like last week or 2 weeks ago. I live directly behind them, Shores.
Immediately to the left of the garage.
Yeah, so right there. So,
He looks at the side of the garage.
right. And so I really like it, and I think that it's something that adds a lot of character to the block and allows us to, the Shores, who have been so nice since we moved in, that I do like the idea of them being able to age in the house and be around for a while. But even as everyone was commenting about the height of the garage, when I am in my bathroom and I'm looking out the bathroom and I'm looking into the pond, I'm pretty sure the garage is now going to block the pond and give them some more privacy in the backyard and more privacy in my bathroom. I think that's a good thing. Everyone was very concerned about that, but so I would consider the garage affecting me the most. So yeah, I really like it, and I think that you guys should approve it.
Thank you very much.
Yeah.
Any other public participation? I'm hearing none, I'll close that. We do have an opportunity, I don't know if there's anything else you'd like to say based on that public participation, so feel free to comment.
Yes, I would. Number one, the rendering, it was oriented so that you could see the side of the garage on the left-hand side to show that we are installing windows and brick and making it part, again, of the original house. The other thing that I think you're talking about is this massing of the height is an interesting point again that I'd like to make is that you see this, and again, this is the grade, the main grade of the house, which is by itself is quite high and massive. If you take the grade and you're looking down the street or coming from this way, again, you're not going to you don't see the addition, number one. The other point is that here again is the grade, and that's the massing that you see. It is a one-story addition as it is attached to the house. The point about the garage, the garage floor right now, or the height of the garage is a 10'6", the plates, the top of the stud walls are a 10, and then you have the roof, which right now is at this height, and it's a hip roof. So obviously, oh, you don't see it, it's so small. And all we're doing is taking that, bringing this up, we're breaking it with an awning, with the standing seam one, and then putting another hip roof, which again falls back, and the mass is really right there. So I guess the point is that the drawing might portray that garage as being the biggest element, but we wanted to show that side, and we wanted to show how it attached and ran with the original house.
Can I say something? Or was it?
Sure.
I don't think you're correct by hiding it from this side. I think you're correct if we're looking at the other side, you're higher and you are actually, like you hide the grade before, but here the grade is going with the house, so if you stand there, it's not like you don't see what is below the grade.
No, I
You do
understand
see
that. What I'm
everything.
saying is, if you get around that corner, just at the edge of the house, and you look back, that's the grade. Yeah, right, to the right, yes, right, Hank. You're not even gonna see, you're barely gonna see the garage from coming down this way. It's set back, as I said, 25 feet. You know, the addition is set back, it's out of the way. And what I'm saying is, the height comparable to the house is in proportion.
Yes, I'm
That's what I'm saying.
agreeing with that, just not the covering thing,
Well,
because
I'm
you
just saying-
will see.
I just want to let you know that
Yeah.
that height is in proportion to the house, even with the 6-foot drop.
Okay.
Okay, so we have an opportunity to discuss and propose some motions. So I'm going to start on the other side this time.
Okay.
Mark, any discussion that we want to have and amongst the commission here?
Yeah, I would first like to point out that the interior layout and the basement are of absolutely no concern to this commission. We're not concerned with the inside. We're concerned with the outside of the house. What can be seen from the street. And in that regard, what we look at is the elevations, not the renderings. And there's one main point that I want to make out, and it relates to what the question or comments you had, Steve. In the guidelines on additions, specifically says, on corner lots, the elevations facing both streets should be treated as fronts. So looking at this lot, which is not unique because my house has the same situation, but it's very unusual. This house has a back and 3 fronts. It has no sides for our purposes. So what you see on the Hendry elevation and what you see on the Dundee elevation are fronts. So with that being said,
I understand.
I think we need to look at the guidelines, and I'm going to go to the landscape guidelines that were attached to the Odell application, and quote the Secretary of the Interior standards for rehabilitation and guidelines for rehabilitating historic buildings recommend against introducing any new building, streetscape, or landscape feature that is out of scale or otherwise inappropriate to the setting's historic character. Now, the setting is the lot, okay? And the historic character of that lot is a simple rectangular Italianate house. Going to the guidelines on additions, designing a new addition, the guidelines recommend against designing a new addition so its size and scale in relation to the historic buildings are out of proportion, thus diminishing the historic character. I think here you have taken the historic character of a rectangular Italianate house and turned it into a mini mansion of sorts. It's not at all what was envisioned, I think, when the house was designed and built. I don't think it's at all in character for the neighborhood or the historic district itself. I think the plan grossly exceeds what the guidelines project. And I'm totally against it.
Thank you, Mark. Would you like to have some discussion about the project?
Sure. Having worked in universities and museums most of my life, I feel as though it's hard to have this kind of conversation without, as we say in the academy, having it become intertextual. Meaning, I'm not sure there's much I can say that's not going to respond in some ways to what Mark just said. I do think that the design is an elegant solution, given the architectural program, that the Shores have established. The only observation I have in terms of conforming with the guidelines as set out by the Secretary of the Interior and, as we've come accustomed to, really has to do with that facade that we see from the Hendry side. And this is more of an observation than a critique, actually. I think one of the problems with historic preservation or heritage preservation in general is a kind of damned if you do and damned if you don't. The design works really well from the Dundee side because of the setbacks and the breaks, you know, so that it has the feeling of being like a kind of Italian village, if you will, of buildings kind of crowded next to each other in a small area, you know, and that's very much in keeping with not only the Italian revival, but the sources for the Italian revival, you know. It's a little bit different on the other side, and I guess I would just invite you, if you have some time for reflection about it, about maybe some minor changes in the finishes that would give the illusion of more of that kind of change. I think the rigor of your conformance in terms of trying to keep the brick courses and everything so much the same all the way across that range of buildings, because you don't have the benefit of the deep setbacks and the shadow lines that it's going to create and so forth. That maybe on that, you know, on the Hendry side, there may be an opportunity to create the illusion of those kinds of breaks that would be deeper. So this is a general observation, but not a requirement. It wouldn't cause me to vote against it. I mean, I think it's fine the way it is. I think a more general statement, you know, and this is a response to, you know, your observation, Mark. I've spent a fair amount of time in Europe, and it's interesting how there are entire cities that could be called historic districts, and people have altered and built and changed structures over hundreds of years with no consideration, you know, to historic preservation. And it's those changes that actually give those towns charm. And I think it's because we're so close to our own time and so concerned about, you know, maintaining the historic integrity of the Hill District that I think there's always a danger of allowing perfection to become the enemy of the good. We want Huntington Woods to be a living community in which people are going to continue to want to move here and continue to value the neighborhood and adapt to it as I think people's, you know, tastes change. And I don't think it's entirely feasible, you know, to allow ourselves to be locked, you know, into a set of values and living standards and so forth that existed 100 years ago, but really are no longer quite suitable. And I think if there has to be changes, what I like about the design is that you are building a large addition, but I think it's being done in a way that's not so intrusive. And one of the benefits that comes with the renovation, with the addition, is a very significant and important restoration of the original house. And that is the baby that I would be hesitant to throw out with the bath water, because I like all of the consideration that you're giving towards restoring the elegance of the original house, because it doesn't look very good right now, actually. And I think that the changes that you want to make in terms of revealing the original woodwork, restoring that railing up on the roof. I always wondered if there was a railing up there originally when I would walk by that house. I think that's all to the good. So I'll leave it at that.
Thank you. Jill?
I have two problems. One, that I feel that it's look too close to the original, and for me it's hard to distinguish what's the old and the new. I would want to see more distinguish between the part. And the other thing, I agree with Mark that it's the mass and the scaling is very overpowering of the addition to the original house. On the other hand, I understand the plan. I understand the need to connect the garage and to make the changes that the show wanted. So those are my two sides. But I would suggest, I don't know if we're allowed to suggest, for the addition to have like more glass or more So it will both show the difference and also be less powering to the existing house.
Do we want to go, Hank, this is where I always get tripped up, because we bring up things that we didn't necessarily state during the questions. Do we wanna- Why don't we go through the?
Go ahead.
and we-
Do we need to stay during the question? Like, I don't know.
No, but
I would suggest, Mr. Chairman,
let's go through and then I'll let, yes.
and then you can have a discourse.
Thank you. Go ahead, Robert.
Thank you. Mike, are you intending a brick match?
Yes, absolutely, that, yes.
Okay.
Yeah, we have the brick right here.
So I have a number of things I'd like to talk about, things that make me uncomfortable. And I agree with absolutely everything Mark said. I'm one of those guys who follows the standards. That is our charge. When we assume this position of being a historic district commissioner, we agree to follow the standards as set forth by the Secretary of the Interior, and not to reinterpret them, but to apply them. So I'm going to be a little bit random here because my notes are as people were speaking. I'm not at all comfortable with you resizing the window banks. Changing window banks from 3 to 2 on the Dundee side, that is changing a facade of the building, which we are prohibited from doing. And that's the configuration as originally designed and built, and that's how it should stay. I think that I think the critical massing of the entire project is out of scale for the site. A tremendous amount of open and green space is being lost. And that open space, that green space is hugely important to the scale and how people perceive where they are and how that volume occupies that lot. That isn't like a good lot. That is the premier lot. That is the heart of the historic district with some of the finest houses in the city right there. And that house is one of them. And I think that adding that vast amount of new construction to it changes the scale of the space and alters the balance of the entire neighborhood, which is something that we are to consider. It is clearly stated that the value and significance of the resource and its relationship to the historic value of the surrounding area. That is open space. We're always to look at not only the structure, but the space around it. You have introduced design elements on the exterior of the house, panels replacing what I'm calling, for lack of a better word, the board and batten effect. You don't know what's underneath there.
Robert, could you speak?
I'm sorry.
But I'm having trouble.
I'm trying to be cognizant of that, I forgot. You are introducing new design elements that you don't know if those exist underneath that existing metal. And to propose these design aspects without knowing what's there, because we are supposed to be restoring, not recreating, not creating a false sense of history of what was there. And the same thing goes with the railings. Before I could approve this, I would want to know, what are those railings going to look like? And why wouldn't they be a precise duplicate of what is over the entry scaled to that area, to those two flat roof areas? That work can certainly be done. There are plenty of metalwork shops in Detroit that do that. I'm really uncomfortable with the separation of old and new. I don't see it. And that is supposed to be a strong, easily seen separation, so anyone can look at it and say, old, new. And here, it's a melding. It's just a flow from the old to the new and from the new to the old. I wouldn't think that a person who doesn't have any type of architectural design background would even be able to distinguish old from new if you're doing a brick match. The windows are primarily the same. You're reproducing arches, you're reproducing columns. You're reproducing roof lines. It's just more of what is there. The creation of a new garage door on the Hendry side, that makes me very uncomfortable. There's nothing there now. It's just a blank wall, and to create a garage, there's a double entry garage is what's happening. I don't think that's right. The standing seam roofs that you want to apply, there's no evidence of a standing seam roof. You said there is evidence of a metal roof, but we don't know that it's standing seam, and you're matching that all the way around from front to back. You're bringing the entire structure into one time period. You're creating a false sense of history by doing that, and that is to be avoided. Are there trees coming out on the Hendry side? There's some pine trees, I think, on the west side of the garage.
No.
No trees coming out?
There are trees along the property line, but not next to the garage.
Yeah, they're along the property line. Are those coming out?
No.
Okay. You spoke about the addition hiding the garage, that it wouldn't be visible from some angles. And I find that worrisome. Like, here's an addition of such volume that it conceals part of the garage, or the garage. Again, it goes to the mass, this entire massing and the size of the project. And as Jeff said, it's like a village. We don't need a village. That's just like total overkill in my mind. Yep, that's it for now.
Robert? Steve?
I kind of reserved some comments till the end here, and some of them reflected some other commissioners. I think that the area, well, first of all, I don't understand the need for any garage variance. I'm looking at the space in the garage, and it doesn't look like it's particularly slotted for anything, or, I mean, I'm not gonna ask you what you need it for, but I don't see why there would be any need for a garage variance in square footage. And the area above the garage, this loft area, looks to me like it's an additional living space, or constructed to look that way. Like, it's almost like some of these condos that you look at where you drive into the garage and it's got a living area up above it. It looks like it's constructed, designed to look like a living area. And I do feel that it's quite busy. This is just a facade to hide a staircase and a hallway. It sounds like what it is, this whole front.
But it's,
The entryway, correct? I mean, there's a hallway and a staircase behind.
And a master
And a
suite
master
behind it.
suite.
in a master suite,
Yeah, but none of these windows,
up at the upper level though. That's to get from
there's
the
one,
grade.
well, there's one window at the upper level above the porch. Does that window go into the master suite, or is that?
That will open, well,
It's part of the foyer.
it's part of the
So what we
foyer.
have here really is, it's a very grand entrance, I have to tell you, especially for a side entryway to a house. And I think that it looks more like the front entryway to a home.
That's what it's supposed to
That's what it's
look like.
supposed to be.
It's supposed to be a front.
Well, to that extent, it overwhelms the front entryway. This looks more intricate and more involved, and more detail-filled than the actual house itself.
Can I make
And, hold on one second, please. And I do believe that the loft over the garage, the way it's being portrayed, actually looks like it's another living area. At least from this elevation over here, this rendering, well, I guess it's an elevation. So, thank you. Chris?
This is a complicated project, so I appreciate the level of detail that's gone into it, and just a couple thoughts about some very successful strategies and some things that that have been discussion points that I won't necessarily bring up again, but It's a very unusual lot. I think if you bring the site plan up, I know that we look at 2D elevations as part of this, but the 2D elevations really don't tell the picture on this project at all. And I just would like to thank you for this. When you really look at the way the house is experienced, the way these corners are very prominent, and the way the house, the massing steps back on both sides, I do believe that those are successful architectural design interventions that try to relegate the massing of an addition. A couple other things of note, on that particular elevation that's on the board, I call it the slot. That is a well-known strategy to have the mass of an addition and the mass of the original connected with a flat roof slot. So I do believe those are proven strategies to help with massing when you do have additions, because I'm a big believer that the historic regulations do not prohibit additions. What they try to do is they try to talk about sensitive additions, and there's a lot of what everybody said. I agree on both sides, whether or not it's a contemporary glass box on a thing, which would have a whole nother set of commentary from the public. But that is a successful strategy, as well as then trying to balance, appropriate material languages and design languages. So we can have that discussion, because some of that might be based on opinion. Other successful strategies, when you start to look at the way things step, I do believe that when I look at the side elevation, because of the grades and things, the scale, I think, is of the primary volume is maintained. Everything you do is below the eave line, even the peaks of the roof. So I think those are good things. I do have a little problem with the garage, I still do. I think it does look oversized. Actually, I think they would probably, when I really look at it, as you're stepping down away from it, to me, that would be more successful. That's my opinion. We can have lots of discussion about that. But that being so tall, I mean, if you thought about it, primary mass, slot, secondary mass, and then accessory use.
Tertiary.
And I would appreciate that more, if that's just my opinion. But again, when you experience the house, you don't have this orthogonal view, even from the Hendry side, so I think the elevations can be very deceiving. So successful things, the in and out and the shadow lines that are gonna happen, the fact that you're maintaining that tree with the retaining wall, all strong. So again, you're gonna experience the house as you're coming, the prominence of both those. There's a little bit of an intervention there, that's debatable. I appreciate it for the function. I know I'm not supposed to, but again, flat roof, you still try to alleviate the massing of it. And again, you're never going to get an orthogonal view. So I think there is some successful strategies here. Relevant to scale, this is a judgment call. My calculation is you had, what was it, 1,000 square feet added?
Yes.
Is that correct? And that's about a 43% addition, okay? So how do we judge what's appropriate? If I saw a volume that was higher than the existing house, I probably would hold exception to it. Again, I even said that the peak of the roof is under the eave, maintains the period of that, you maintain the symmetrical front. Everything steps back, plus the way it's sited on the site, it even helps because you're so far away from these lines. Granted, that is, look at that.
There's the
That's
house,
the leading edge
yes.
of the house adjacent, right?
Exactly.
So, I mean,
You want them to see it.
I do, so I do see that in 2D, it makes it worse, probably experientially it's gonna be less, but we have all of the shade and shadow. Again, as we get further down and we experience the house, it falls away on both sides. Those are pretty good. Now, when we get into the detailing itself, how are we being respectful, or how are we creating false sense of historicism? I think that's gonna be a lot of personal opinion. Things such as, obviously the standing seam roof. I do appreciate Robert's sensitivity. It's probably not standing seam over those other roofs. It's probably more of a flat seam or something like that. So how do we create interventions when, unfortunately, we don't have record of that existing house, but we still would expect some expertise to make sure that we're making strong decisions on the material choice? And then how are we respectful with the material choice on the new? That's a fine line. So I can see some things that are contemporized. I can see some forms that are similar, and I think those are good. You know, is the arched window, which doesn't have brick in the top, is that enough of a change from the historic or not? Those are gonna be some judgment calls that I think are challenging. The grade itself creates some challenges to this, because by default, you get at the building line an additional 6 feet of height. That is unusual, and that's difficult. You don't normally get that sort of grade transition in Huntington Woods, which also then helps from the 3D perspective, let that big house, the original house, be prominent in the front. So I think it was a good way of mitigating some of those risks. I appreciate, no, I'm not supposed to appreciate plan, but functionally, I understand it in some of the ways, and there are some things that I think help that. And I'm gonna let the rest of the subject about, you know, whether the details appropriating, I think that should be some more discussion amongst us about how we feel about that, because I think a lot of that does become a little bit more personalized, and the guidelines are, like I said, if it was a glass box, to me, it's easier, which is strange, because some people feel that that's not appropriate, but I think that's well within the spirit of a historical edition. So that's the end of my comments. I did want to give you just a minute to, based on our discussion, and just allow you to have a minute to, if there's anything else you'd like to say, and then we're probably going to have some more discussion here. But is there anything you'd like to say?
So there's a couple things. Can we go back to just the picture of the addition, the Dundee view? Can we flip to that? So I want to make, that was it. I want to make 2 comments here. First of all, relative to those that have said it looks like a new main entrance. When we have people over, frankly, when we come to the house, our guests would like to, they don't now, come to our driveway like you would normally do for somebody coming over, or if you have a few people maybe that are on the street, whatever, would pull into the driveway, come up to the house. Nobody does that today, because the front entrance of the house is about 50 feet off the street, and there's no garage over there. So people park on Hendry, they take there isn't even walkway from Hendry onto our sidewalk, so they have to walk across grass and then go onto the sidewalk and then a long walkway to get to our front door. It's not comfortable for guests. So our envision is that when this is done, this will look and feel like the entrance. I know that's not the historic view of what this home was for, but somebody made the comment about current, I think it was Jeffrey, who made the comment about current living conditions and the way things are today. This is how people want to enter our home, is through this side. What we have people doing now, if they want to come in closer, is they find themselves stumbling up a set of stone and brick stairs in order to get to our back porch, in which they find themselves staring into a 2-by-2 foot, not vestibule, because the back of the house is awkward inside and out. So it is designed to be that, that type of entrance. The only other comment I have is that the area above the garage is really just there for cosmetic purposes. It's designed to provide balance to the layout and the structure of the side of the house. If you take that away and you just tried to picture it without that, you would have the entranceway, which has to have the height it has because it's got to traverse stairs going up and stairs going down. That's what's going on behind those columns, are those 2 sets of stairs. And so it has to have a high peak and it has to have some height so it can manage that 6-foot change. If on the left side of that, where the garage is, you then had the existing garage height, I think it would look awkward. I mean, we don't have a rendering of it, but I think it would look awkward. We didn't ask for it. We didn't even know that Michael was going to do that. But when he explained the balance that provided so that it wasn't an awkward bolt-on of a low garage next to that entranceway, it made sense to us. Thank you.
there any other discussion that folks would like to have? Because I know there's a lot on the table here, so maybe we can go around one more time. Oh, sorry.
I'd like to make a couple, I'd like to make a couple additional addressing the fact that the foyer area you're talking about, the arch window is going to give enough differentiation, or the fact that is that enough difference as a contemporary or a break? The windows that you see here, and I really should show you here, is this corridor, or this whole space.
Like, if you could speak up,
Oh,
because it's really difficult to
okay.
hear.
I got you, I can hold it. Thank you, Pete. This whole area, this is fully glassed, this is fully glassed, and this is fully glassed. This whole corner is glass. Then it extends up 8 feet, and it extends up 8 feet. So this whole section is almost, if you look at that elevation, there's another one of those windows around the corner. So that whole mass that you see disappears in glass. And the reason that we have this height is the fact that you have to walk off the stairs and you have to have a headroom at this point just to start getting down per code. So this, do we cut this down and then bring this, shape this down, so then we cut the windows off, so then the windows are this high? No, we bring this out at this level, so when you walk through here, you have a 10-foot high ceiling, which is only 1 story high, but that is all glass on the front, on either side of the window, and around the corner. So that whole mass disappears at grade level. The only thing you're going to see along the top part is a shed roof, and that's it. Then it goes up to the roof, and if you see this elevation, we do have a graduated drop from the roof on the right of the house to the center section down to the garage. So there is a graduated drop. So that massing is in balance. The slot differentiates, ties it into the house and ties it into the addition, that center section. So that center mass that you see from down is going to be all glass. The only thing that you're going to see is a covered porch with contemporary column, a faux balcony, and that upper window. And that upper window allows light to penetrate into the upper half of the corridor, if you will, and allows that whole corridor to have natural light. So you have this light because that tree is staying, and that's going to be another point that separates, or point of separation. So we've talked about that. That's one of the reasons why the windows are in there, is to light that up and to take that heavy mass away on that additional part. The other point I want to make is this lot is over 17,000 square feet. The whole front of this, the front door on the existing house is over 100 feet from the point of the front entrance to the intersection of Hendry and Dundee. That's the whole mass. What we're filling in is a jumbled mess of stairway and rock, and it's not taking away any green space. We're accentuating the green space. We're also accentuating the green space on the opposite side on Dundee, where all that is stepping back away. It is going, we're allowing the pond, we're allowing all that area to be opened up so that, you know, we're not removing green space, we're creating an option to use the green space, because there is no green space between those two areas right now. And as I said, this lot is over 17,000 square feet. In reality, we could add a 4,000 square foot addition in here. That's allowable. We're only adding 1,000 square feet. The original house is 2,055 square feet, so it's less than 40%. It's more like 20% of the addition. Thank you.
Mark?
there's been some mention, about the architectural aspects of the plan. As Chris pointed out, it's a very workable plan. But we're not concerned here with workable, we're concerned here with historic preservation and the appearance of the house, the property. And of course, we naturally have to recognize the shore's concerns, in terms of aging in place. I mean, I face the same situation myself. I've been in my house for 48 years, and I'm only a block away from you, by the way. And I certainly appreciate that. But I believe that these issues can be addressed without this massive addition. For example, the plan is already to demolish the existing garage. Simply move the garage up, make it an attached garage next to the existing structure. This can be addressed, to deal with the elevation. If necessary, a lift can be installed, to avoid stairs. This has the benefit of opening up the space between the Shores residence and the house next door on Dundee. I think this is just way more extensive than it needs to be. Architecturally speaking, if this were not in the historic district, it would probably be a great plan. But it is in the historic district, and I don't believe it's appropriate.
Thank you, Mark. Jeff, anything else to add?
Well, I think that Rob, excuse me, I should be by the microphone. I think Robert made some good points with regard to the restoration of the main house, with regard to the seamed roof, I think is a good point. I think the question about the railing, and I think it's one of those things you just couldn't anticipate. I understand that. And maybe pulling back the metal and seeing what's behind the spandrels, and that sort of thing. And I think those are actually valuable points, because in some ways that you really are talking about a historic property and then that balance between restoration and consolidation and so forth. So I think I agree with those points. I don't know, I'm comfortable with the plan in general, particularly from the Dundee side, as I mentioned before. And I still feel the same way I did before from the Hendry side, just because you've done such a good job of matching, brick and stone and so forth, that from the Hendry side, you don't get quite as clear a sense of where the house ends and where the addition begins. From the Dundee side, it's quite clear because you have that deep cut, and you're going to get the shadow and the flat roof that separates the main building and so forth. And it's a little bit less obvious, at least when I'm looking at the elevation. And I did drive around the house this morning. I was the person out there who was parked in front of your house on both sides looking at it. So, I can get a sense of how the addition will work. And I don't know, being new to the commission, I don't know how one might negotiate these little details, This would be something, I have more experienced people than I could speak to. And I do appreciate the comments about the garage, and that little element. It seems to me like that, I wonder, I guess it's a question, is the storage space or the loft space absolutely necessary? If there was some way for the architect to come up with a kind of elegant way of maybe, I don't know what the solution would be, maybe lowering the roof on the Dundee side, setting it back a little bit. I mean, I don't know. There might be some solutions that would kind of make it seem less, it's just the garage part a little bit less massive. I mean, the side that works best actually is the Dundee side, no question about it. Although that architectural drawing, that projection does you no good because of the distortion it causes on the porch. The projection I'm talking about now, yeah. I'll leave it at that.
Thank you.
I'm agreeing with Mark that it's a very smart plan, and I think it's very cohesive, and if it wasn't in a historical district, it was great. But I'm still standing with same thing that I said before, that I feel like it's overpowering the existing building. And I don't feel like it's too cohesive. Like, I understand it needs to be cohesive, but also needs to be different.
Robert?
Thank you. I may have misunderstood something, so I would just like to go back, please, to the side entry in this elevation. That's being constructed where there is nothing existing now, correct? Okay, so I just don't understand how you can say that. We're not losing green space, because that's green space, that's open, and you're building over it. You're building on top of open land.
Can I make a comment or just a question?
Sure.
How do you create a covered stairway?
That's not the
up to-
issue. My point
Then
is
it's
simply,
going, well, then.
my
you know.
point is simply that open land is being consumed by new construction, and that alters the historic aspect of the site. And that is to be avoided. That's clearly stated throughout the standards several times. And no, it clearly is. And
There's an addition. You can put
Awesome.
an addition on. It says you can put an, I'm sorry.
Well,
you can,
let's
I
have.
understand.
Yeah, thank you.
and also I see what we call the northwest elevation, which is the facade of the house, what we commonly call the front of the house, as becoming subservient to both the Hendry and the Dundee sites, because they are both so substantially larger and architecturally present than as we see this house now.
You don't see it.
Well, I think that if you
don't
made an overlay, if you made an overlay of the top drawing and placed it upon the bottom drawing would be larger.
It's longer.
Yes.
You don't see the addition from the front.
You don't see the front. You see that? That's exactly it. This house has 3 fronts. This is how the city sees it. It is 3 fronts and a back. When you're on, that's what it is. Mark, you read that standard, right?
Mr. Chairman, rather than having a debate, what I might suggest is that we go ahead and take the comments from this, and then before any vote or anything is taken, I'd like to make a comment, if that's acceptable.
That's good.
Okay.
Robert, do you have more? I don't want to
I don't.
shoot.
I'm done.
Apologies. Steve?
Chris, thank you for sharing some perspective as you will be walking around the house and how the house is gonna self-obscure some of these, some of the elements and so on. But I do believe that the Dundee side, as I expressed already, looks more like the front of the house than the front of the house looks like the front of the house now. And I think that the addition itself has to be more minor and not overpower the front elevation of the front of the house. And I still believe that it just has way too many design elements going on with it. And obscures the value of the front of the original structure.
Thank you. And could you just do me a favor and put up the site plan? If you could, I don't know which way you gotta go in the plan, but
I'm sure I could find it.
Here it is.
so from my perspective, again, I'm gonna go back to what I think is successful. So the idea of a house perched on a hillside with prominent lawns all the way around, I do believe from a historic character is still maintained with this addition. The infill right here, again, because if you look at, if you were just to project the existing house back, the addition always steps in from it. So you maintain the fact that it's this very prominent, perched, the highest mass on the site, and that the green space does indeed flow around the house. So I don't feel that this necessarily does, just a difference of opinion. So I do believe that, again, by doing things like this, where the house shrinks, from the perspective, because you are going to see that cone of vision, you don't see this poking up above, off to the side, and then as I experience it, these corners become very prominent, and the square mass of the primary house with the wings is still very evident as you go around the house. Even coming from this way with the projection here and how severe the step back is, and how far, as you go down the street, how far away this is, I still think the perspective of this is more dominant than the 2D elevations, and the 2D elevations I think are actually very deceiving, and I appreciate the rendering. I know it's tough, but 3D models are always great, just as a tool, especially in something that is this unique. So again, I think there's a lot of successful elements. I do appreciate all the commentary in terms of the design, and my comments about the garage still stand, because I think if you really looked at the massing of that side, if that happened to be lower, it would be very easy to see the prominence of that large thing. Even with your proposed entry, and maybe there's some options where that entry gets scaled down to make some other people happy, but if you were to look at that big volume, if you just go to the elevation, why don't I point at it, rather than just making wild hand gestures? Again, opinion, beautiful. This projects out, you get a lot of three-dimensional character here. This corner is always very prominent, and this falls back as you go down the street. If this were the most prominent thing, you kind of get A, B, and this kind of became the C, a little subservient. I think that would be more successful, that's my opinion. And then whether or not this gesture overpowers that's a sensitive thing. There could be some discussion. For example, even if that little protrusion up on top weren't there, it would downplay it a little bit, but those are opinions. So I'm gonna leave the rest of the comments. I think there's some great comments by the commissioners, and Hank, I think you had a comment.
Yes, Mr. Chair. What I might suggest is, because there's been a lot of information that the Historic District Commission has offered Mr. Ostrowski and the Shores, what I might suggest is giving them the opportunity to ask for a table to have a discussion between themselves and perhaps take a look at modifying some of the things that the Historic District Commission has suggested. Procedurally, they would have to ask for a table in order to do that. Otherwise, the board would have to vote tonight. So that again would be my suggestion. It would allow the designers and the Shores to take into consideration what the Historic District Commission has said this evening, perhaps make some modifications that may perhaps change some people's minds or alter it, or of course they're free to accept for vote tonight, whatever they would like to do. But whatever it is would have to come from them.
So just, hopefully everybody understands that. I just want to make sure it's clear. You obviously paid an application fee for the application. Hank's giving you the opportunity, if you feel like you might want to modify the design based on some of the commentary, to do so, or if you want the design as is, then we can go for it.
I have a question. If this is not tabled and it is voted upon and it is rejected, do the applicants need to pay a second fee to return to us?
They do.
Okay. And that's $300?
It is.
Okay.
Can I approach?
Sure, please do. No, please do.
Thank you.
No, please do.
So I'm just being practical and after advice with counsel. It appears that we don't have the votes here, so I think it would be foolish of us to ask for a vote this evening. The one thing I am concerned about is a couple of you have expressed objection to the concept of an addition. If we're going to get a no vote on we can't add a master suite to our home and we can't, because we have to do something between, if we're going to put a first floor master on the house, which is part of the design, something has to be behind that entrance, whether that entrance is simplified down and made to look more secondary or not. I don't have heartburn with that. But if this group is going to say no to the majority of the idea of an expansion at all, then we've kind of wasted a bunch of time here. I didn't believe, and I actually asked Hank about this early on, that you had the right to say, no, we can't add. I thought that was based on square footage and lot coverage and all that. So can I get some clarification on that before I ask for a revote or a table?
If I could respond to that.
Please.
We're absolutely not opposed to additions per se. This commission has approved, I don't know how many additions. That's not the question here.
Okay.
It's only a matter of the appropriateness of the proposed addition.
Okay, thank you. Does anybody have a different view of that?
I'd like to say one thing. There are 10 standards that need to be met. All 10 need to be met for a project to be approved.
Understood.
As long as your plans meet those 10 standards, you're approved.
Okay. All right. So if we were to come back, and I know I'm asking a hypothetical here, but what I'm thinking what we do is we come back with a garage that is less dominant than it is now, and with a entranceway that is either more subtle than it is today, or at least a drawing that more accurately depicts what it is. We had also introduced the idea, suggested the idea of brick columns instead of wood columns, because the front is wood column and the side as brick column might further distinguish it as being a different period and an add-on. I don't want to ask you to vote on or consider all those things right now, but it sounds like the two major things we need to do is reduce the appearance of the size of the garage, which was just for appearance's sake anyway. It wasn't functional, so the plan never was. We do garden a lot, so extending it back a bit gives us space, because right now if you walk in our garage, you can see that I can open my car door about this much, because I've got pots and plants and winter cement things, and so they were like, hey, we can add to the back of it, which I think is very cool. We'd like to keep that, but the height-wise, that's cosmetic. And then if the entryway looked a little less dominant than it does today, would this group, are those the two things that we ought to most think about when we come back?
I would suggest, Mr. Chair, that at this point, that you have made your points, and I think that Mr. Shore is picking up on the comments that are made by the HDC, and I don't think you can answer his question in a yes or no.
I was going to make just a quick, and I'm going to try to do this
Okay.
in my own crude way to make a quick summary of things that I think are important, and without going into too much detail, you've hit on, and I'm going to call it the appropriateness of scale of the addition. So that could mean you lower the garage, that could mean how you treat the transition, so I'm just going to say that as a comment, that you picked up on a lot of those. I think there were some specific concerns on the historic structure itself, to be a little bit more meticulous about what's proposed for the interventions on that, or if you're truly restoring it to historic, bring a little more research and thoughtfulness to those.
Right.
I think the prominence of the entry was a comment. I think you can interpret that the way you need. And then the other comment that I think was thrown out there, and I don't, is just, it goes back to the standard about a false sense of historicism. So when you look at the design of the existing, how much is too literal, where it creates a false sense of historicism versus a differentiation of the addition. So that's, again, That could be things like I was talking about by insets, outsets, scales, but it could also be a sense of proportions and materials. So that's going to be a little bit more of a
Sure.
harder one to interpret. Is there anything else primarily that I didn't cover with those generalizations? Does that sound okay? Hopefully that helps a little bit.
Thank you. Then I would like to move, if I'm allowed to make it as a motion, that we table.
You can't make a
Okay.
motion, but you can
But
ask.
he can
the-
ask.
I would like to ask that somebody make a motion that we table. It's been
Okay,
a while
so-
since
So now we'll just close the commentary and we'll have a quick discussion. So there has been a request to table this, and I'm just looking to see if the commission can accommodate that request and if somebody can make a motion.
I would make a different motion.
Okay?
I would make a motion to deny, based upon not meeting standards 2, 3, 5, and 9. The denial does not create any type of time restriction for reapplying and for this commission to deal with it. If it's tabled, time restrictions start ticking immediately. And it will force us, it could possibly force us into a position of dealing with this in a manner which wouldn't be beneficial to the district or to the commission. I think we are always warned, a table motion is the last motion a historic district commission wants to make and should make. That we are much better off, as a commission, and the applicants are much better off when we simply make a motion to deny and have them return with fresh plans.
So I'm just going to ask a quick question. I appreciate that. And Hank, you made some recommendations on that, so educate me why or why not a table is a good thing. I'm obviously
There's a 60-day codicil that can only be waived if the applicants agree to waive it. If you don't act on a historic district application within a 60-day time frame, it's automatically deemed approved. If they request a table and they request a delay, they forego the rights for the 60 days. So that's where this is coming into, and that's the gray area, which I believe, and I don't want to speak for Robert, but I think that's what he's thinking. But the 60 days goes away if they voluntarily ask for the table, which Mr. Shore has done this evening. As far as the rest of the time frames, that doesn't start until after approval. So like a year from the date, everything expires a year from the date if they don't have a vested interest in the project at that point in time. So why would it be appropriate to have a motion to table? Well, first and foremost, it gives them time frame in which to make some adjustments to come back based on the information that they've gleaned from the HDC, which is part of the function of the HDC is to give suggestions, as opposed to give them suggestions, send them away, and then have them come back, reapply, and do that again and again at $300 a pop, with all due respect. So I think what it does is it gives the opportunity for the applicant to consult with his design team and perhaps consult with staff based on the changes and maybe review the comments that have been made by the Historic District Commission and come up with something. So, I mean, I'll say that that there's no question that the presentation has really been one of the best presentations that we've heard. I don't know that he left any stone unturned, and as far as discussion, and I also think that the questions from the Historic District Commission are certainly legitimate. So I think that there's an opportunity here, and that's why I suggest that you may want to consider a table. The applicant has asked for a table.
So just to be clear, the whole 60-day rule, which would imply that if we didn't act quick enough, the proposal as submitted would pass.
Right.
Because we didn't table it and it was a request, that is off the table, so we mitigated that risk?
And for clarification, we can ask right now, Mr. Shore, do you understand what we're saying with this? You understand that by asking for the table?
I understand that by asking for a table, I am waiving my 60 days, and we're not going to default an approval because we asked for a table.
Thank you.
Does that alleviate any of your risk, Robert, or does your motion still want to stand?
My motion stands.
Okay, so is there a second to that motion? So hearing no second, that motion does not,
Fails for lack of a second.
thank you, fails for lack of a second. So we're still looking for a motion.
Motion to table.
Second.
Okay, so we have a motion to table second, so all those in favor, please say aye.
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 All those opposed?
Opposed.
So, got that for the record?
Okay. I do, and Mr. Ostrowski, I would suggest if you have an opportunity to give me a call tomorrow, we can perhaps go over some things.
I have a question, right, since we're done.
Yeah, we do have other business, but you.
Look, I just have a question. I'm a little confused regarding what I've heard tonight regarding the standards and meeting the standards. We were never asked to, what we felt the standards were. We were never asked our opinion of what the that we had met all the standards. I was also under the impression that additions, which are listed in the Huntington Woods Historic Commission guidelines, are approved. However, some of the comments from the commissioners stated that if we put an addition, it will be going into a green space, which was emphatically denied by one of the commissioners. And I'm just trying to get a feeling, is that, why do we have then an addition is going to take up green space? And it seems like it's a foregone conclusion that that's not going to be approved. Am I under the wrong impression?
You are, and I'll explain why, if that's okay with Mr. Chair.
No, it's fine, because
Thank you.
I've got my own, but you'll probably do it more eloquently than I.
I don't know about that. I think what you're looking at is that there's a percentage of green space. And perhaps what needs to be addressed the next time that we look at this is perhaps more towards the fact that, you know, you're allowed at 25%, and then even after your addition, you're at 19.1%.
Correct.
So I think that that's the case that can be made for that. As far as whether or not they vote on it, because you and I don't get a vote. So I think that's one of the things that could be addressed as far as that goes. Also, where the green space is. So these are things that can, again, we could discuss and talk about it, and perhaps articulate, you may be able to articulate some reasons that would be acceptable to the HDC. And as far as that goes, that may help you. The other thing is that, you know, when you look at whether the standards are and whether your interpretation of whether you believe you met the standards, obviously you do, or you wouldn't have designed it that way. However, how they interpret the standards is going to be, and with all due respect, is going to be more important only from the standpoint is that they're the ones that are charged with the interpretation of those standards. So as a result, it's kind of like when you bet on a horse race, everybody may like a different horse. But regardless of which, you still have the race. So for you to come in and meet what you feel is the standards, what my suggestion would be is that you take a look at what they differed from your opinion of what the standards do, and then maybe address some of those things either through design elements or through some form of discussion as to why it is. But, you know, clearly something has to be done, and what the Historic District Commission did this evening was to give you an opportunity to do so, and still be able to come back in short order. You'll be back within the next month.
Oh, I understand that. The other question that I have is the fact of somewhat of the ambiguity of the fact that how to address the fact of respecting the existing structure, the existing style, and keeping that in context with the addition, and to a certain extent where it is not looking as a continuation of the development. And there seems to be ambiguity on the commission's part on what is acceptable and what isn't acceptable. And it seems to be, I'm just trying to get a feel of, is this personal opinion, or is it based on guidelines, or is it based on standards?
All of the above.
All of the above. But are there any points of the standards and guidelines that outweigh personal opinion?
They have to do is they have to, in order to get a vote from somebody, and then at this point in time, this is going to stop being a productive conversation.
I understand.
So I'm going to.
That was my last question.
Yes, it is. So what I want wanted to do is just because it's a fair question, is to give it the opportunity, like, if somebody has an opinion, that opinion is based on their interpretation of what the standards and the guidelines are. The guidelines and the standards are two different things. The standards are by the Secretary of the Interior's guidelines, which are approved by the National Park Service, and that's the guidelines for what they have to go by. The standards are, the guidelines, pardon me, are from the city of Huntington Woods and adopted through the State Historic Preservation Office. So their interpretation of them are perhaps a little bit different, and everybody may not give you the exact same thing. So is there, if, with all due respect, if you're looking for something where everybody has to interpret it the same way, and everybody's gonna look at it the same way, it's not gonna happen.
No, sir.
Whether it's the Planning Commission, Historic District Commission, Zoning Board of Appeals, or you're on Mars somewhere, it's just not gonna happen.
Well, that's what the guidelines are for.
So, well,
That's supposed to, I assume, to even the playing field.
a guideline is just that, it's a guideline.
It's not a law.
So it's not a law. So while you may have members of the commission that interpret things one way, and you may have other members that interpret it another way, that's what's gonna happen on any board or commission. So. So that's what I have. So my suggestion again would be is that perhaps we should get together in the next day or so and go over the
Absolutely.
results of the meeting, and we can go from there.
Okay?
Can I make one comment?
Yes, sir.
I just like to point out that, you know, historically, the commission has always tried to work with the applicants. You know, we don't want, you know, to just say, go away, you know, denied. Which is why we, you know, Randy requested table this. You know, we want you to get something that you want, that we can live with.
Yeah, understood. Yes. Yeah, I just wanted to say, I think in closing, although if you have another comment, while we were hoping for a different outcome, obviously this evening, so we could move on with the project, really do appreciate the amount of thought and energy that went into the discussion here. You all have passion for trying to do this, and so hopefully we'll be back shortly.
Thank you. Thank you very much. And we appreciate the amount of work, so thank you again for the discussion. Okay, I think we do have another application tonight, Hank.
We do.
So let's bring.
I believe the gentleman's been waiting patiently.
He has. If he had been here a little bit earlier, we could have flipped the order. Yeah. But I guess we'll start with the application. This is a matter of review for a walkway addition and landscape for the Odell residence at 26857 York.
I've got my posters for my egress.
Good luck.
So the floor is yours. Please, as always, when we go up to the mic, just state your name and address, and you have a chance to present your application.
Jeff.
Hi.
Yeah, good to see you all. Yeah, I thought we were still doing Zoom, so I was.
Oh, you're
and then it
waiting
kind of
at home
dawned on
for the
me. I
link.
was like, hey, if there isn't a Zoom link, then it must be over here. So,
Well, welcome.
no, thank you. Yeah, yeah. So basically,
Could you name and address for the record, please?
yeah, 26857 York Road. And yeah, the basic project is there's this.
Forgot your name.
Oh, Alex Odell. Yeah. Yeah.
Just want to get it on the record.
But yeah, it's basically, there's an egress that's between the garage and the house, and it's almost like this giant hole that is like, when you walk back there, there's this kind of pretty old, just kind of grate on top of the egress, and it's probably about like, 10 feet wide, like it covers the whole space there. And so a couple things. One, it'd be nice to be able to just have like backyard access, that you could just kind of walk back through there directly to the backyard in an easy way. But two, it's also kind of like a safety hazard with moving back there, like after it rains, people have to kind of walk over top of it, all that. So yeah, I wasn't 100% sure on how to approach this. Like, I guess there could be I don't plan to finish out the basement, ever, or have a living space down there. So one thought was like, just basically putting, cinder block on the window down there and just filling it up. But maybe there's another approach of shrinking it, but it looked like there's some pretty clear standards on what kind of needs to qualify for that. So yeah, I kind of was curious of what you all think of potential solutions on the table for that. But yeah, that's about it.
Don't you have another proposal as well?
Yeah, and then there's, then the front is like, one of the people here is my neighbor, and probably knows that the front yard hasn't been kind of redone in many years. So yeah, I was just thinking of doing some like landscaping in the front, and just was sort of looking for general parameters there of, I haven't like nailed down the exact plan, but looking to do some kind of more like natural grasses, and yeah, kind of think about, it's something that feels a bit more natural there. Yeah, so that's basically the view on the front of the house landscaping.
Thank you very much. Hank?
Yes, sir. Couple things with this is that I want to point out that the filling in or the deck on top of it, the deck is actually above grade. Filling it in and having a walkway with that is actually below grade. So the work that would be done to fill that in, take out the glass windows below grade and fill that in is a different animal than adding a deck to the outside. So those are two things for you to consider. The deck and the wood that he has, even though it's pretty much like a slab on grade, only it's kind of a deck on grade, with the side, may create some more problems than it solves. There's always areas that, when you have like decks on grade like that, there's areas for rodents to, get. There's also areas where water and moisture can maintain under that, and then with the wood deck that's on the grade, that tends to deteriorate a little faster, so that's a couple considerations for you. The other thing is that when you take a look at the landscape with the front, a couple concerns that you might have is the size and volume of the landscaping. It shouldn't be anything that would obscure the resource. So if somebody wants to put in a 4-foot Japanese maple, that's not likely to obscure the resource. But if somebody wants to put in a row of 10-foot arborvitaes, then you have another issue altogether. So I think that perhaps what you may want to do is, if you're inclined to pursue this evening, is to speak to Mr. Odell and let him know what your thoughts are on this. The information that he's given us is actually what appears to be almost preliminary information. And then it's not a refined plan, but I think if you gave him direction as to what you might be looking for as far as his walkway, the fact is that he really doesn't have an egress to the rear yard of the house, and this is it. And the fact of having a grate there does present him with some problems with that, as far as that. If we were to say this was not, and this was a new house coming in, quite honestly, we wouldn't approve it like that. So having said that, Mr. Chair, the floor is yours.
Can we assume, Hank, that eliminating that egress would not create any problem with the building code?
No, because he doesn't have a bedroom in the basement. So if it fills it in, if he was looking to block that in and fill that grate in, you wouldn't necessarily see it any more from the street than you see it now. You wouldn't know, I don't even know that you can see that from.
Yeah, that's what I thought.
Yeah.
So, if you don't mind, I just had one quick question about, if there's also a middle ground between filling in or reducing the size.
That's, again, and with all due respect to everybody, that's not what's proposed. So if there's a middle ground and it's something that you would like to suggest, you're certainly free to do so, but they're also certainly free because they don't have plans or documentation, like you sent in with all this, for them to consider, so they may have concerns, and it may be more difficult for them to get behind something that's an abstract concept rather than a document. that's up to the commission.
I can't remember which side, did I start with you last time?
Start with Peg.
Mark, you did.
Which, I'm sorry,
You started with Mark.
Mark last time?
Last time.
Okay, so I'll start over here this time. Sorry, I just couldn't remember.
Well, first of all, I want to tell you that grate there looks totally terrible and hazardous, and it looks like something that I wouldn't want there. I don't know how the garage got put there, and the whole thing doesn't make sense to me. Did that garage come after the grate, or
Yeah,
did it come after the garage, or?
I would imagine it came after the grade.
It looks like a terribly conceived plan. Even how close the garage is to the house, is that even allowed by code to be that close?
There's burn ratios, so I mean, you have to have you may have to have an hour firewall, depending on what that exact measurement is at the back. It may have to be firewall rated if it was to be built today.
Well, I think that if the basement has no intention to ever be used as a bedroom, or if you did, you'd probably put this exit somewhere else on the house. I mean, it just makes sense to fill it, and what covers it. I don't know if it has to be anything other than grass, or if it has structural issues or drainage issues there that it's not, you can't go across it if it's just grass. Do you know, is there wet areas in there that are already soppy and difficult to?
Doesn't particularly seem like it gets like a ton of water there.
I would just venture to say that in the interest of landscaping, that I'm not gonna guess that gets a whole lot of sun back there, so perhaps expecting grass or something like that to grow back there is probably not a reasonable expectation.
Yeah, it just looks like something that's very awkward and inappropriate where it is right now. And exactly what goes on top of it, nobody would probably ever know or see it. It's on the side of the house and not visible. I don't really have much comment. It should probably be replaced with what exists there right now.
Thank you. Anything else?
Nope.
Robert?
Thank you. I hope you get rid of that grate. And I hope it doesn't become a rat fest by creating anything that actually sits upon the ground.
Yeah, that's fair.
Yeah, because that's, rats in Huntington Woods. So my only real question here is, for your front walkway, are you proposing a change in elevation for each step?
No.
It's still one flat? Yeah, I think if you did concrete blocks, it's the same construction material as the house. And it's almost a natural. So on this lower photograph,
Yeah.
there are all these crazy little lines down here. What is that?
That's the wood deck.
That's what?
That's meant to be, so that, you're looking at the front of the house, correct?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's meant to be, like, along the sidewalk, I was hoping to put grasses.
Oh, those are plants.
Yeah, so that's meant to be plants going about.
Oh, got it. Okay.
Do feedback.
I have no more questions.
Okay.
Hank, I've got a couple questions, just because everybody who knows me knows I'm a little slow. So, why are we even looking at this grate? It's not visible from the house, it's not changing the historic character of the house, except there is an existing historic steel sash window in the basement, but it's below grade, we can't see it, and I'm kind of curious, why is this under our purveyance?
That's what we're looking for, is for your interpretation that that's the case, and he's free to fill that.
Okay, so I understand the walk, because again, as you know, I'm a little slow, but through training and being on this before, I understand the importance of the walk. From a landscape, it's not my understanding that we, unless there's a historic tree that we feel adds a defining characteristic to the historic district, landscaping is not under our purveyance, or like paint colors aren't and things like that, so why would we ever talk about that?
Depending on what he's putting in, so for example, if part of his landscaping program, he's putting in a large tree that's gonna completely obscure like he's putting in a spaded, type of.
Again, I still don't believe that's part of our purveyance. Trees grow in the neighborhood. If you really want to go back to
No,
the
no, no.
historic character, we had a bunch of twigs except for the big oaks because they certainly
I
didn't
understand.
sensitively place that. So landscape changes over time. I'm always going to object to the fact that we think that landscape is a stable element. It's not going to change over time. And I don't understand why we talk about that. So at some point in time, I'll need to be educated on that because I don't get it. But in terms of the proposal, I don't have any problems. I understand the way the house is configured. It looks to me like the garage is existing with the decorative concrete block and things, the way it's sited and things. But I agree that not being able to access and use it to get to the backyard, it would be an improvement. I would say, I mean, this is just an opinion that doesn't have anything to do with what you do. Steel sash windows are really cool. And if you were going to demo that steel sash window, there may be some salvage places that would love that window.
There sure are.
So I don't mind you filling it in, I get it, but I would just say if you could save that and give it to somebody, they would love it. In terms of the front, you know, there's been lots of discussion, I know, in terms of changing materials. I think what you're proposing is based on the precedent images, is to have, I'll pick on this image right here, where either ground cover or grass is forming separations between the blocks. I personally don't have a problem, but I know in the past that this will be a discussion point because if there's a concrete sidewalk that exists, there is some opinions that that is historically significant and it should be replaced in kind. So I'm going to let other people comment. Sorry, I guess I should let you go first when I spoke up. I had the question about why we were even talking about some of this. So my apologies. Please go.
That's okay. You cover some of the things that I wanted to say.
Got ahead of myself.
Again, I don't have any problem with the walkway. I won't repeat what others say. I am all for this front walkway. I think it's really go with the character of the house. I didn't quite understand the rest of the landscape plan that you are, if you can, except of the walkway.
Yeah, there's, I was looking, like, as you kind of pull up from Woodward and you go up York, I was looking like on one side of the driveway to plant like just like some lower kind of, I don't know what you would call them, but like kind of like those, but you see them around kind of Huntington Woods, but there's like those kind of pointed bushes.
Oh.
Arbor vitae?
Yeah, that's the word I was looking for. But yeah, like thinking on just the left side of the driveway. So kind of creating a little bit more of that kind of privacy with the house there. And then, yeah, grasses in the front, and so like along the driveway, and so it kind of creates then a little bit of separation from the sidewalk to where the grasses start in the house, in front of the house, and yeah, it's so pretty kind of minimal landscaping work. But yeah, right now there's really not much landscaping in general in front.
I don't have any problem with that.
Okay.
Yes, I'm Alex's next door neighbor. I should probably recuse myself at this point.
Yeah, you have a vested interest in the landscaping in the front.
Yeah, I really don't.
You have to look at it.
I mean, I know that, by the way, with regard to the garage was built on later. The original garage was a one-car garage, which is at the other end of the house. Actually, I think, Hank, you may have mentioned that, and they turned that into a family room, and it's kind of awkwardly, there's a window in there and stuff, but it's kind of awkwardly done, and then they built that garage. And it angles, you kind of get that from the photograph, but it starts out, I'm guessing maybe 6 or 8 feet between the house at the front end and the back, and it is maybe, 4 or 5 feet?
Yeah.
It gets much narrower as it goes back.
Of an alleyway almost.
Yeah. So it's a very awkward space to begin with. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I have no opinion about it, really. I think I agree with those beautiful old casement windows. Of course, my house, has those also in the basement. And I just, I have sort of two, be careful of what you wish for thoughts, both about that casement window, because your ideas about the basement may change at some point. You'll really regret if that's bricked up. So, maybe the notion of trying to make that, window well smaller, and then having a walkway that kind of artfully works around it. Some good designers. A few. I think the same way about the blocks, going up to the front of the house. I mean, we have winter. And I'm thinking about how would it be to maintain that? So I don't know. I appreciate the aesthetic, the sensibility behind it, but I just don't know from a practical standpoint. The landscaping, all of that, I think it's perfectly fine. That's out of our purview anyway, but,
I don't necessarily agree with that, and I guess I'll answer the chairman as far as his questions. It says the Secretary of the Interior standards for rehabilitation guidelines for rehabilitating historic buildings recommend against introducing a new landscape feature or plant material that is visually incompatible with the site or destroys site patterns or vistas, which is the reason that I even brought it to you. So having said that, the documents that were provided by Mr. Odell were not abundantly clear as to what he was using. So allowing him the opportunity to clarify that and take care of it rather than have it drag on, okay, well, how about this, he gets this done either tonight or something else. If you're satisfied that what he's represented to you is acceptable, then you would vote yes. But without that, without having the information that he was giving you tonight, we wouldn't have known that, and then we would have been remiss in an opportunity to protect the guidelines.
regarding what? I'm getting a little lost here. Are you talking about the landscaping?
Yes.
Okay.
So just a point of clarity, in my opinion, and I hope everyone else would share, that we really only have 2 items on the table, because I don't think there's enough from a landscaping perspective.
He's explained that, if he's explained that to your satisfaction, then that comes off the table.
I think that we're focused only on whether or not, how to deal with the potential removal of a window. And I guess that can be clarified, I would ask, because if the window well is reduced, you're not removing that, that would fall off the table, correct?
That is correct as well.
So if the window well were just reduced, that's not even an item we're gonna discuss.
Yeah, but how do you reduce a window well without reducing the window?
You can bring it closer, because it's not, there's no requirement
It's
for
real
egress there. There's no requirement for egress. You could just make it a light well and reduce the depth of it.
So that was something I was looking for clarification on. So if I did choose to reduce it to a light well, bring it out a few feet, maybe it no longer qualifies that I can renovate the basement, because it's not a.
It's all about whether or not, and this is a building code issue, so it's not, I shouldn't be talking about it, but there's some different requirements if there's bedrooms.
Okay, but
So-
because what I was kind of thinking was I could reduce it and still keep that window, and then let's say I did want to renovate it and make bedrooms down there, then I would expand it back out, and that could work?
That's correct. and it wouldn't be
Depending on
an-
your design, you may need more than one egress.
Correct. And it's, so if you don't
That's
remove
not
the
what's on
window,
the
we don't
table.
have anything to vote upon, right? The window is the issue.
That, if that's what he's now representing, then
Okay.
that does.
And then we have the separate issue, which is the walkways, because there's a change in the walkway material, and we have to comment on that. And I would say that landscaping is not something we're voting on, because we don't know what it is. Nor do I guess I express an opinion that I don't necessarily think that most times it's even our business, but that, somebody will educate me on that later. Does that help clarify at all, what we're trying to vote on?
Yes.
Okay. Mark?
I agree with what you said about the well. It's not visible from the street, the grate's not visible from the street. Why are we even talking about it? So as far as I'm concerned, that's, he can do what he wants. In terms of the walkway, at a time when I was not a member of the commission approved my request to put in a walkway where there was not one, because there was a good reason to have it there. And I can see the same situation here. The only question I would see in that regard is what to put in. So that goes to my only question is, why replace the front walk? I mean, I took a look at it this afternoon, it doesn't appear to be in disrepair. And from the commission's standpoint, the basic rule is, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. So, I would be inclined to say, just, you know, you laid out two options for, you know, along the side, the back walkway. If you put in a concrete walkway, it would be consistent with the front walkway. Bob's your uncle, you're done.
It would be an administrative review at that point in time, right?
Yeah.
Potentially?
You know, we
Could
would
have
just, we would be approving the, you know, the addition of a walkway where there isn't one.
Chair, I have a question if
I have lots of questions too, so go
I
ahead.
can. Well, go on next time.
I still don't
I could
100% know what we're voting on here, so, or why we're even asking.
Does, do the arborvitae along the side of the garage, in the front of the house, do those come under the purview of some other city code, under fences or landscaping that's allowed?
Fences, walls, and hedges is what the ordinance.
So
It's section 4010-10 is what the.
would that be governed by some other, portion of the city code other than?
The historic district code would be like if he was to put in something that would obscure, like if he was to put in 8-foot arborvitae's along the front of it, you would have two violations. One would be the hedge ordinance. The second would be the part of the historic district that says you can't obscure with what I just read to Chris. So yeah, it's basically what you're looking at is if he's representing to you that he's not gonna take out anything, he's just gonna make the window wells smaller and that's all that's gonna happen here, then that comes off the table. So you don't need that. You don't need a motion for that. The only motion that I see after what Mr. Odell has represented here this evening is to either A, replace the front walk, and B, to introduce a walkway where one has not been before. So the only thing that we're looking at, I believe, tonight, if, assuming that the Historic District Commission is satisfied with what it is simply the walkway where there wasn't one before, and to replace the walkway. If he's representing that he's not gonna replace the front walkway, then it's simplified even more by putting a walkway where there wasn't one before along the side of the garage and the house. Those are the only things that I think are on the table, if I'm hearing your interpretations correctly and Mr. Odell's representations. That's the only thing that we're really here at. He's gonna shrink the window down, which he doesn't need your approval if that's all he's gonna do. And then he's gonna go ahead and put a walkway in there. So if that's what, if that's where I would go with this. If that's, is that your understanding of what you wanna do?
Yeah. Yeah, with the idea of the walkway where there isn't one on the side of the house, like if I was shrinking the window, I'd probably just put like probably peat, gravel or something of that sort, just
Then
as,
that's landscaping material and you don't need that. If you're pouring concrete or putting concrete in there, then they would wanna weigh in on that.
yeah.
If you're putting crushed stone, that's a landscape material and that's no different than mulch.
Okay.
So.
Can I ask a question?
Yes.
Sure.
So what is the porch thing here?
Yeah. Oh.
What that related?
Oh, that was just a showcase, though previous work approved was,
He was here before.
yeah.
Oh, for your house, okay.
This is follow-up of something that was already approved.
Okay.
Yeah.
He gets frequent flyer miles.
He just wanted to show he was doing the right things.
Okay.
Followed the rules.
Which he absolutely is.
Yes.
Okay.
I think beyond frequent flyer miles, Mr. Odell has a keen design sense and pretty much knows what he's doing and what's appropriate for the architectural style of the house and staying within workable parameters for the district. You and possibly one other person about a year ago are the only people who have ever really come in here who got it and were willing to apply themselves to HDC parameters.
I appreciate that.
A caveat,
I'm building on I'm coming with my mansion presentation soon, so I was, no, I'm just joking.
Yeah, hurry up, please, can't wait to see that.
Mr. Chair, you might want to entertain the question at this point in time.
Well, I'm just going to ask, okay, one more time, just to make sure. So we have two proposals on the table. It's putting a walkway, which you can't see from the street, so I still don't understand why we're voting on it. But a walkway where there was not one, which is the area between the garage, are we doing a walkway there? Is that what you're asking for approval on?
I guess not, because I was just gonna do.
He's
seat
not
gravel.
putting concrete.
Okay, so the only
so-
thing we have on the table is if the front walk were to be replaced with the blocks. That's the only thing that's on the table versus just leaving it alone.
In my
You still
understanding,
want
is he's now removed that.
Okay, so you really have nothing on the table.
Is that correct?
So are you willing just to leave the concrete walk the way it is and you're gonna do gravel?
Yeah,
And you're not removing the window?
Yeah,
Then
well,
thanks
this is-
for
No, it's been,
listening to us
well, it's
talk.
been helpful because I wasn't clear on what.
Sure.
So this has been helpful to know that I can move forward and,
So-
figure it out, so,
So-
yeah, yeah.
so just
Yeah,
to be
there's-
clear-
yeah.
He's withdrawing his application.
I'm withdrawing.
Thank you very much for your time. Thanks for coming in. Have a great night.
Adjourned.
All right,
Well, thank you all.
thank you.
Mr. A caveat about
Yeah.
Arbor Vitae. My
Yeah,
wife planted some nice Arbor Vitae a while back. The damn things are like 30 feet tall now.
all right, you gotta watch out for them. No, that's good advice.
So we don't get away that easy tonight.
Oh.
We still have some other business, so
Yes.
I will have a good night, everyone.
Good night.
Night.
See you.
Yep, see you,
Is
Alex.
there like a time limit, or we
No.
should
Yeah, the
be
moon
here
for me.
until?
we're gonna be
okay.
here all night.
Yeah.
No, I've been grossly abusing my powers as chair. No, because we haven't had a chance to vote on these, so now we actually get to have an official vote. So tonight we do have to do election of officers. It was delayed because of some meetings, and we had some special meetings, so this is back on the agenda. So we have to have, have some nominations for chair and vice chair and vote on those. Is there anything else I need to?
No, you
reinforce?
can have more than one nomination. Obviously, the first one, not the first one, but the one that gets four is the one that's gonna pass. So, anybody is eligible for the, spot for chair and vice chair. Somebody will have to nominate somebody
Correct.
for that, and then they'll have to accept the nomination, and then seconded, vote, proceeds from there.
So is there anybody who just wants to, I mean, do we have to ask for nominations, or does it just happen?
You have to ask for nominations, and then somebody will make a nomination.
So I'm just going to put that on the floor. So we're looking for, right now, we'll start with the chair. We're looking for somebody to nominate, somebody to be chair of the HTC.
I will point out that it could be people that have been in the past, it could be people that have been, it's not, It's open.
It's an open
Yes.
forum to make some nominations. So if anybody has any nominations they'd like to propose, please do so.
So we need to nominate someone else? Or
No.
To nominate,
you
oh,
can, just to be clear, you can still nominate Chris, but you can nominate Mark, you can nominate Robert, you can nominate Steve, you can
No,
nominate
but-
anybody, but he's not excluded from nomination.
Who's the current vice chair?
We don't have one.
We don't have one, right?
Oh, okay.
Because of transitions.
Yeah,
Okay.
the vice chair term limited off.
Okay.
So that's
Is the,
why,
may I ask a point of order?
absolutely.
Is the current chair willing to continue serving as current chair?
I would be happy to do so, but that's where you could nominate.
I would nominate Chris because of his great temperament and respect for the applicants and also his fellow members on the commission. I think he's done an excellent job, and I would nominate him to continue.
I'll second the nomination.
So is there anybody else who'd like to make some nominations? Can people volunteer to do it? Hank?
So they need a
We
nomination.
need a nomination. Okay. I don't know the procedural. So if somebody wanted to do it, I don't want to exclude them from raising their voice if they.
I think according to Robert's Rules of Order, a person can self-nominate.
But you still need a nomination.
Yes, yeah.
So you can nominate yourself, I guess is the point.
That is correct.
Okay, so is there anybody else who Any other nominations?
Is a motion in order? I mean, I would move to elect Chris by acclamation.
Do you need a second?
You need a second for the motion. I'm assuming that nobody else wanted to nominate themselves.
I was just asking, so it doesn't seem like anybody else is going to.
Actually, the second, again, according to Robert's Rules of Order, somebody has to move that the nominations be closed. So I'll move that the nominations be closed.
Second?
All in favor? Aye. Okay, so we've got, now somebody make a motion on the nomination, or
For vice
Vice
chair.
chair.
so do we just go right to a vote, or because we already have a motion on the floor, or how does that work?
Do we need to vote since
Oh,
there's
I'm
only one nominee?
Who voted for vice chair?
No one voted for vice chair.
No, but did we, by default, no, we didn't say aye on whether
Everybody
I got
raised their
voted?
hand.
I
Oh,
voted for you.
oh, okay, I'm sorry, I missed that.
You're done.
Okay, so now we need a nomination for a vice chair?
The vice chair be the chair also?
No, we need to have a stand-in.
Yeah, I'll nominate Jeff, if you're willing to serve.
Well, I'm willing to do it. I don't know. What does it involve? Are there any perks? Let me get right down to it.
All kinds of-
Robert's rules.
To be absolutely clear, there are no perks.
Oh, really? Not even a parking space? A free parking space?
Parking space.
There's that power, if I'm not here, you get to run the meeting, that's a perk.
Oh, yeah.
Say so.
I'm trying to sell it.
So I second.
Okay, so all in favor of that nomination? Aye.
Abstain.
Abstain.
And I'm opposed. Only because you're brand new. And have you been to training sessions or did you?
I haven't been to training sessions, although I did get, courtesy of Hank, the training manuals, which I've read.
Okay, so you have 4 affirmative votes. You have Chris, you were a yay. Michaela, you were a yay. Mark, you were a yay. And Steve, you were a yay.
Yes.
And I'm
4
the nay.
votes. You were a nay. So 4 out of 7, that's approved.
Anything else to do with the election business, Hank?
At this point in time, no, other than we had communications. Robert wanted everybody to get a copy of a notice to proceed and notice, certificate of appropriateness and a notice of denial, so that you can see what it is that we send to people. So that's
And-
why that was included in the
Okay.
packet.
Is there anything, Robert, do you have some commentary on this?
I do.
I'd love to have you. You had a reason.
Yeah, I had a reason. One, the primary reason is probably none of us have ever seen these documents before. And these go out after we make a decision, and it is under the City of Huntington Woods Historic District Commission. It represents our actions. And inasmuch, we should know what we send out, has our name on it. Only at the top. It is only signed by Hank as zoning administrator. I believe that should be changed. I believe that there should also be a signature of the Historic District Commission chairperson, and that there needs to be a date inserted at the signature lines.
Mr. Chair, I'll check with the city attorney on that, but I believe that it only requires the staff administration, because all these have been vetted by our city attorney.
Maybe so,
So,
but I think that this shows our involvement in process.
I have no problem with it, other than perhaps the chairman's availability to sign the document.
Well, that can be all.
There are some methods, depending upon if you,
Yeah, I would
digital
ask for
signatures
the
and some other
opportunity to
things.
explore that with the city attorney. And
Yeah.
if the city attorney says no problem, happy to do it.
I have just a couple more questions, if you don't
Yeah.
mind. Just, it sort of just says that, when we usually make motions, we pick the guidelines that we find are appropriate in order to move it forward. This sort of gives them a blanket. Is that being too nitpicky? Or should we be?
No, these are appropriate. I think this is right.
Because it just says it in accordance, okay, second, not, because we don't always agree on all the guidelines, right?
That was
Well,
the
those are the
question I
standards.
asked at the Zoom training session.
Yeah,
Right.
And the answer is, the applicant has to meet all the all the standards.
Right.
We can specify standards that are particularly met,
Okay,
but we don't say.
Okay,
we
it's not
approve because it
exclusionary.
meets this standard.
just asking, because, we a lot of times do sort of rally around a couple of points when we're making motions, so.
there's a couple, things too, like there's this standard that says that archaeological and then another one for chemical treatments that typically don't apply a lot to what they're doing. So whether or not somebody would be meeting those, they just wouldn't be undertaking them at all.
I mean, there's certainly meeting minutes to back this up, so.
Only in
Just asking.
notice of denial do we cite those standards.
Yes, okay, the specific, right, I got you.
Right.
Yep, okay, I'm
That
just
has to
asking,
be during the
that makes
notice
sense
of
to me.
denial, because it has to be defensible.
By the way, there are samples of all of these letters in the basic training manual. And FYI, I was looking at all of those, and the sample letters in there, they're signed by the, somebody who's a member of the staff, and it's signed, the wording is, it's signed for the commission, but by the staff.
We can change that.
I mean, it's, it's six of one, half a dozen of the other.
Again, I'd like the opportunity to run it by the city attorney, because I can use a carbon copy of that if we want to change it. So what I would suggest is, let me get the city, opinion from the city attorney, let me bring it back to you, along with perhaps, if she says, yeah, we can go ahead and change that, let me reformulate something consistent with what perhaps you brought up, perhaps what Robert was looking for, and we can bring it back for you, just so that you can see what it is. But the main thing with any documents that go out from the city is that I get them approved by the city attorney, because she's the one that has to defend them.
I would just like to see things tightened up.
You know what? Actually, the wording under the certificate of appropriateness is nearly identical to the wording for the City of Detroit Historic Commission. That wording where it's, I, Hank Barely, duly authorized Secretary of the City of Huntington Woods Historic District Commission, et cetera. That's virtually identical. So,
And I had a question about something else. And this is the period that an approved applicant, or an applicant has with a certificate of appropriateness to perform the work on their property. We never discussed that. It's never mentioned. And under section 6284, it gets down to no certificate of appropriateness or notice to proceed shall be valid for a period exceeding 1 year from date of approval. 30 days prior to the expiration date, the applicant may make application for a 6-month extension with no fee. So my question becomes, is this something that we should declare when a certificate of appropriateness is approved by this commission? Do we say you have 1 year now to begin work? If you don't, and you don't ask for an extension at the 30-day mark, do you come back? Do you realize you have to come back?
You can do that, it's in the code. So
Right.
whether it happened or not, that's how it would be enforced.
Well, it's outreach to the community, it's fairness to
No,
our applicants.
I understand. That's why I'm saying you certainly can do that at the meetings. if you
We could do
would like.
that as a courtesy.
Yes, exactly.
We've done that at planning reviews.
At plannings, yeah.
We usually tell them,
You have 1 year from the date.
correct. So that would be
You
a
can do that
good
here.
process improvement. Just another quick question about just the notice of denial.
Yeah.
We state which standards, why they're non-compliant. Why do we state the suggestions? What's the benefit of that to us? Because is that too opinion versus fact-based?
No, that's exactly what you want to be doing for the Historic District Commission. So like tonight, you had an instance where you had an extensive project, and the Historic District Commission, whether you agree with the table or whether you wanted it denied, makes no difference. What did make a difference is that you have given them some ideas to make them a successful project, so that they can
courtesy.
take that back, yes. So you want to inform, that's why with like planning commission and stuff like that, you don't want them, you don't want to do that. With historic, it's exactly the opposite. You wanna offer resources, you wanna do that because it's in the interest of it's in the interest of preservation, furthering preservation. So that's why that's on there. So, for example, if this was to be a denial, the reasons for the denial would be on that, and that's what would go out.
And I have one more thing, and then my Columbo Act will be finished. People leave here, and then we have no idea what happens. Case in point is the Zacharias house on Hendry. This fellow appeared before us because he started construction without any permitting. He was stopped. He came back here with insufficient plans. I think that when these kinds of things happen, we as the commission should be made knowledgeable, like what's happened.
What's happened?
Where does it stand?
He's been in court twice, and he's about to go for a third time.
Yeah, this is, why is he going to court? What's
Because
happening?
he's built without a building permit and without a failure to obtain a certificate of appropriateness from the Historic District Commission.
And what happens in court, or what happened in court?
He was found responsible and had to pay the fine, and he was told to get a permit, and he has not done so.
Is he still building?
No.
So it's just sitting there like raw
That is
lumber?
correct.
And this has been going on for close to a year now?
I think
2
over a
years.
year.
What?
Over almost 2 years.
Wow. So what is the course of action? What,
Court,
and the court can have him do what?
at this point in time, we would ask for him to tear down the structure.
And return the house to its prior condition?
That's correct. Unless he comes in with a permit, which he has failed to do.
Wow. Do we have anything else outstanding?
Not that I'm in court with, no.
That's good. Jeez.
Wow. How often does that happen? I mean, in a given year, is that rare that you have to take somebody to court, or,
It's very rare.
yeah?
It's very rare.
Well,
Thank you, Robert.
Thank you,
Appreciate
Chris.
that. That was great. I was going to say, I don't see anything, I don't see any public participation, so I'll state that. So I'll close that, and then I'll be looking for a motion. And I think Steve made it, so motion to adjourn. My guess is it's going to be unanimous, but all in favor? Aye. Aye. Thank you for the input tonight, it was great.
Thank you, everybody.